Chapter 51, Building the Company. James secured a large plot of land with almost no upfront cost. The project he'd pitched was just too attractive for California to ignore. In Los Angeles, something like this wouldn't even make headlines. But in Silicon Valley? A gaming and software hub with global marketing potential? That got attention. The state wanted tourists, traffic, and jobs. James delivered the pitch with Cortana's helpful inputs, and thanks to his technical patents, creative IP, and the inclusion of Tony Stark as a backer, they basically handed him the land. Of course it wasn't charity. Politicians don't do favors out of kindness. They saw votes, headlines, and dollar signs. James didn't care. He got what he wanted, prime real estate, no strings attached, just a basic compliance checklist to follow. "I'm heading back to New York to meet with Stark," James told Philip. "We've got 2 months. In the meantime, start the server vendor bidding. We'll need a lot. Rent a temporary setup if you have to. The launch will happen at the Stark Expo." "That's a tight schedule," Philip replied, raising an eyebrow. "The tech's solid. Once the servers are in, we're readily operational. I can even lean on Stark for optimizations. Just focus on getting the bids. He'll stop by soon to inspect." James boarded a flight back to New York. The moment he landed, he called. "Tony, I'm back. How's your expo looking?" "James, for this time it's our expo," Stark corrected. "It's almost ready. Right now we're in show rehearsals." "Wait, what? It's still 2 months out and you're already rehearsing?" "Relax. Everyone else can wait. My opening act is the barometer of the entire expo. If I nail it, the stock price goes up." "Oh, and your 5 million shares of Stark Industries? That gives you 3%. Welcome to the Knowledge Bureau." "No time for that. I need to see you. The plan's finished. And I need capital." "Then come to the venue. Show me what you've got." James grabbed a cab and headed straight there. Stark was literally on stage in full Iron Man armor, dancing with a team of backup performers. "Hey Ace, what do you think?" Stark called out from mid-choreography. "It's flashy. Over the top. In other words, completely you," James called back. "Glad you approve." Stark launched into the air with a flare of propulsion, scattering dust as he landed nearby. Yeah. Save the fireworks. "Read this," James said, handing over a thick packet. Stark returned to the robotic dressing rig to disengage from the suit, then flipped through the first few pages. "You're serious about this software? Look closer. It's bundled content, music, movies, streaming, social networking, work tools, and games. Most of it is free. Optional pay models only. Easy to use and impossible to quit. The idea isn't to charge, it's to become essential. Once they're hooked, they'll pay a little to save time. And the real money is in ads, of course," Stark said, nodding. "Get the users and everything else follows. You already filed the patents?" "Of course. I wouldn't show it to you otherwise." "Smartass. All right, I'm in. How much are you asking?" "Don't know yet. Haven't done the math. But the big expenses are the headquarters and the esports arena. That arena needs to be a global landmark. I've got 6 years of product rollouts mapped out. We're not rushing the talent side yet. But we need server stability right now. That's the foundation." "No problem. We'll head over tomorrow. You've only got one lawyer so far?" "Yeah. Still finalizing the CEO. I need someone unconventional." "Say no more," Stark said. "You need someone like me." The next morning, they flew back to California on Stark's private jet. James didn't care about the money yet. S.H.I.E.L.D. still came first. The company? That was just a vacation project. A chance to build out dreams from his past life. "Philip, meet Mr. Tony Stark, our major shareholder," James said upon arrival. "The HQ and the esports complex will rely heavily on his support. How's the server selection going?" "These are the quotes and specs from the top 3 vendors," Philip said, handing over a packet. "Didn't make a final call. Not my area of expertise. These are the best: IBM, Lenovo, and Dell." James flipped through them and passed the files to Stark. "Thoughts?" Stark skimmed and nodded. "Go with IBM. Solid hardware. I've worked with them before. I'll even do some light upgrades." James gave the go-ahead. Philip made the order. IBM took it seriously. A $100 million order got their attention. Their team arrived immediately with top-of-the-line equipment, even if it meant pushing back other orders. The system they installed could handle simultaneous logins from 50 million users across the US. The rented space was massive. Installation began right away. Engineers added climate control, ventilation, and a full monitoring system. Crude for now, but functional where it matters. So how are you planning the design? James asked Stark. Come back to my place. Let's do it properly. They flew to Stark's villa, where Jarvis greeted them and escorted them to the underground lab. Stark activated his holographic projection system. James picked it up quickly and began sketching his design in 3D. His concept, an 88-story HQ, shaped like a stretched-out equilateral square rectangle. Clean, symmetrical, no frills. That's it? Stark asked, eyebrows raised. No flair? I want the HQ to feel serious. A place of purpose. It's a temple for digital warriors. It should project stability and strength, something grounded. The arena inside is where I'll get creative. I'm thinking of bold lines, geometric architecture. Something that looks alive and futuristic. Stark nodded. All right, now we're talking. Chapter 52, Social Media Explosion. Do you want the esports arena to be open air? Tony Stark asked. Of course not. We're not playing soccer, James replied. It needs to be enclosed and built strong. And no, you're not flying Iron Man through the roof. He didn't even glance at him, he already knew what Stark was thinking. Fine, let's figure out what this place should look like. Stark rolled his wrists and went to work on the holographic console. Shapes started snapping together with fluid precision. In minutes he had a full concept, a crescent-shaped arena segmented into 3 zones. The largest section was the core of the crescent, acting as the main stage. All right, now look at this layout, James said. Upper left corner of the land plot is the esports arena. On the lower right corner is our HQ building. On the left corner below the arena we put a massive plaza, big enough to host a yearly fan carnival, where worldwide players and fans would have their fun outdoors. Behind the HQ and beside the arena? A vertical parking tower. And on the upper right, closer to the HQ would be a garden walk for the workers or possible attendees could relax away from the crowd or work. Good layout, just needs a bit of tweaking, Stark said. Jarvis synthesized the concept, along with other small necessities, pathways, and roadways. Simulating building plans. Fusing global building templates. Model complete, the AI responded. The result was clean and structured, but a little bland since it wasn't made by an architect. There's no character, James muttered. We'll need a real architect later to tie in our brand. Yeah, but that can wait, Stark replied. Let's build the arena and HQ first. Once the product's rolling, we'll come back and polish the visuals. With that, they had their working draft. Stark dropped $1 billion for 30% equity. James put in $300 million and contributed 70% of the patents. He then gave 10% to Carlos, no questions asked. After a round of Stark server optimizations, the system could now handle 55 million simultaneous users with little heating issues. It was time to roll. James's real-time communication software, Samira, launched quietly on major download sites. Free, sleek, and tightly integrated with League of Legends. One Samira account could log into both seamlessly. The game itself was now in open beta, no private test phase. Stark developed a data balancing engine for the game while the final piece of the puzzle fell into place, a CEO. They found him. Kyle Robert, age 38, former exec from a game studio. He had bold ideas, most of which had been shot down by his previous board. When he resigned, League Games scooped him up. James met him in a hotel lounge with Stark beside him. Mind if I call you Kyle? James asked. Not at all, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for backing my business philosophy. I didn't, James said plainly. This company would make money regardless of who's running it. The only question is how much money would it make? Stark smirked and nodded. He's not wrong. Creativity and tech aren't the issue, James continued. The real question is scale. We're not going public anytime soon. Not until we've launched globally. Your job is to turn this company into something worth hundreds of billions, maybe even $1 trillion. That's how we'll measure your talent. Understand? Kyle blinked. That's a huge benchmark. Can a game company with under $1.3 billion really get there? You're doubting us? James leaned forward. You're looking at two of the smartest people on the planet. The tech works. The product is free of bugs. What we need now is business. He laid it out clearly. Start with partnerships, movies, music, television, streaming rights, online libraries, and licensing. Get Samira integrated into people's daily lives. The rest is up to you. Understood, Kyle replied, standing. He left to begin immediately. Construction on the HQ and arena had already started. With Stark's investment, they were off the ground fast. Now James just had to wait for the Stark Expo. Samira was gaining traction. Word of mouth spread quickly, and early adopters appreciated the full-featured and free service. While League of Legends quietly launched without a flashy campaign. Since James put the marketing budget into infrastructure instead. The HQ itself wasn't flashy either. 80 meters wide and long, 6,400 square meters per floor, 450 meters tall, with each level at 5 meters high. It had no fancy design. That saved both time and money. The build came in at $2.5 billion, a big spend for a new company, but not the most expensive in 2007. The esports arena came in at $300 million, mostly due to its advanced renovation plans, livestream systems, and custom-built interior. There wasn't enough funds to finish everything at once, but loans could fill the gaps. They had the funding to begin. Timeline: 3 years. By then they expected to go public. Meanwhile, Samira had 1 month to prove itself. In a country with widespread internet access and a personal computer in every office, Samira's all-in-one platform made a big splash. Once installed, only a few uninstalled it. And with the promise of permanent free use, adaptation was fast. Friend referrals accelerated the effect. For League of Legends, the spokesperson was none other than Iron Man. James designed him as a jungle role champion, but didn't say a word about it publicly. No press, no announcements. The champion would be a secret bonus reveal, unlocked at the expo. James's 3-month vacation was wrapping up. He was now back in New York. Stark was deep in the final expo preparation, and League Games was right on the edge of a breakout success. But then came the message. James had been assigned a new mission: establish contact with Tony Stark. He stared at the order. Confused. I'm already partnered with him, he muttered. Isn't Black Widow the one assigned to infiltrate his life? According to S.H.I.E.L.D. protocol, this mission made no sense. He was too close. Too involved. He couldn't accept an operation like this now. So what exactly did Coulson want? Chapter 53, Expo, League Games. James called Tony Stark directly. Hey Tony, I just got a new mission. New mission? Right, you're still an agent. But why are you still an agent? Is it even okay to be telling people this? Tony asked, bewildered. It's my hobby, James replied dryly. Anyway, the mission is to establish contact with you. Which means I'll be tailing you from tomorrow onward. What? That's it? Weird mission. You think they forgot we're partners already? Beats me. Not my job to question it. Orders are orders. I'm just following you around now. Well, then meet me at the expo's main hall tomorrow, Tony said. You still owe me a publicity plan. And you're overdue for rehearsal. No worries. I've got everything prepared. We'll go over it then. James hung up, letting the message sink in. This wasn't personal, but he was still going to get the job done. No lies needed for a friend. The next morning, James didn't leave until 10. He drove straight to the expo grounds in his Audi R8 and found Stark near the stage. So, how are we promoting the company? Tony asked, sipping a green drink. What is that? James squinted. Chlorophyll. Keeps me going. I'm running on fumes these days. But the show's ready. Tell me your plan. James didn't press on the health topic. He knew Stark's situation was worsening, but it wasn't time yet. Here's the flow: you make your flashy entrance. Deliver your opening lines. Then the documentary on your father's plans. After that, you return and introduce me. I will take over from there. That's it. No rehearsal needed. Perfect. Geniuses don't rehearse. Tony grinned. For the next few days, James shadowed Tony during final preparation until opening day. Stark's grand entrance was pure spectacle, blasting in from the sky with fireworks and blaring music, flanked by dancers. James watched from the side, slightly amused. Looks like a circus, but the crowd eats it up. Tony landed in his Iron Man suit, decoupling his armor with flair, struck a few poses and let the cheers wash over him. "How'd I do?" he whispered to James during a quiet moment. "You didn't do anything. Just some spins and struts. I expected a dance routine." "Jealous, huh?" "You heard that crowd." James smirked. "All right. Showtime." The lights dimmed. A documentary on Howard Stark began rolling. When it ended, Tony stepped up again. "The expo is now officially open," he announced. "If you missed today's event, don't worry, the fair runs all year. But before you go exploring, let me introduce another genius. My new partner, James Gibson." The applause was polite but clearly for Stark. The name James Gibson meant nothing to most of them. James stepped forward with a grin. "Thanks for the applause, though let's be real, that was for Iron Man." The crowd chuckled. He had their attention. "But you will remember me. I promise. As Tony's new partner, some of you might have heard what I do. I'm the chairman of League Games, a brand new tech and game company. But what we're launching goes far beyond games." The massive screen behind him lit up with the sleek interface of Samira. "Some of you already use it. Some of you haven't seen it yet. Samira is a real-time communications platform. No ads. No promotions. No marketing. Yet in just 1 month of silent release, it gained 5 million users." Gasps rippled through the crowd. James continued, "Samira connects your life, music, movies, shows, gaming, blogs, forums, video calls, work tools, all in one place. Mostly free. Always fast and totally intuitive." Tony jumped in with a grin. "Can it give us an Iron Man?" Laughter erupted. James nodded. "Glad you asked." The screen shifted again, now showing gameplay footage from League of Legends. "This is our flagship title. A tactical battle arena game. Its champions come from legends across the globe. And launching today, a brand new champion, Iron Man." The feed rolled a sleek in-game Iron Man blasting through jungle monsters, executing perfect combos, jet dashing across the map. "Handsome, right?" James asked. "Handsome." The crowd cheered. "Wanna be that handsome?" James teased. "Starting today, 1 year from now, we will launch the first global League of Legends championship. Teams from around the world will compete for glory. The final 16 will face off in our soon-to-open League Games esports arena, and the champion will take home." He paused. $5 million. The crowd erupted again. "Explore the fair. Enjoy the tech. But just remember, you're now living in my world. My name's James Gibson, remember it." Cheers followed him off stage. "Told you they'd remember me," James said to Tony as they slipped through the crowd. "You're getting good at this, Ace." Outside they were mobbed by fans, but for once it was orderly. "No chaos today," Tony said, adjusting his sunglasses. "Maybe the world's finally calming down." James didn't answer. He just watched the crowd, calculating, processing, already planning the next move. Chapter 54, America's Deterrent. "Yeah, not bad," James said, shaking his legs as they walked. "We pulled it off. Stock's going to climb, the game's already spreading. It's truly a good day." "Wait," Tony Stark said, cocking an eyebrow. "Isn't the game free? How are we making money?" "Cosmetics. Cheap skins for the masses, expensive ones for flex. Then there's runes, champions, account boosts. If you don't want to wait, you pay. If you don't want to pay, you grind. Simple psychology." Tony nodded, impressed. "Genius. Wide user base, low cost of entry, monetized impatience. Now I believe you're actually an agent. That's straight-up psychological warfare. Speaking of, check out my new car." He gestured to a sleek new Audi R8 parked nearby, and leaning against it is a model-tier woman in heels and designer sunglasses. "Is she included?" James asked. Tony smirked. "I didn't check the options list." "Hey, Hogan? Is she a standard issue?" "I dunno." "Should I ask?" said Hogan, Tony's bulky, exasperated driver. They all walked over. James's own car was parked nearby. It was last year's model, nothing flashy. James didn't care for upgrades or convertibles. He glanced at the woman, who smiled and introduced herself. Agent Natalie Rushman. Law enforcement. She flashed a badge. I have business with Mr. Stark. Tony lowered the top on his car and slid into the driver's seat. So, what kind of business? I'm serving a subpoena. She handed it to him. You are ordered to appear at the Senate Armed Services Committee hearing. 9 a.m. tomorrow. Tony looked at Hogan. How far is it to D.C.? 250 miles, Hogan replied. Hey, Ace, Tony shouted to James, who was climbing into his car. Want to race to D.C.? 250? That's in how many kilometers? 402. Why? Just wondering how far ahead I'm about to be. Meet at the Sofitel in Lafayette Square, Tony said. Closest hotel to the White House. No further questions. James started his engine, pulled up his S.H.I.E.L.D. issued navigation system, and with a screech of tires he shot out of the lot without waiting. The drive was intense. 2 hours of flat-out speed, cutting through traffic like a wrasse escaping a predator. James arrived first, grabbed a Coke and leaned against a post outside the hotel. An hour later, Stark rolled up, hair a mess and his car roof still off. When did you get here? About an hour ago, James said, sipping his drink. Is that hairdo standard with the car? I didn't even stop to put the roof back on. Stark laughed. You really don't mess around. The highway suits my car. That was the first time I've driven it like it was meant to be driven. And with the help of Cortana, I will always find the fastest path and perfect gear shifts. They went inside. The night passed without incident. The next morning, 9 a.m. sharp. James sat beside Tony as the Senate hearing began. It was his first time in a room like this, but he immediately sensed something off. One of the senators had the look, polished, hollow, and seemingly dangerous. Hydra, James thought. This whole thing might be a setup to seize the Iron Man tech. If they mass-produce suits, it could be catastrophic. The hearing began. Mr. Stark, the senator asked, do you possess a specialized weapon? I don't, Tony said. Depends what you call a weapon. Iron Man is a weapon, isn't it? What I built isn't a weapon. Then how would you classify it? Tony leaned into the mic. It's an advanced prosthetic. That's the nicest word I've got. Laughter echoed through the room. Even James cracked a smile. Stark had better comedic timing in real life than in any briefing tape. You should surrender the suit to the American people, the senator insisted. For their safety. You want me to surrender me? Tony shot back. Should I wear the suit while picking up trash on the freeway too? More laughter erupted. Stark wasn't backing down. The committee called up Justin Hammer, a Department of Defense contractor. James turned in his seat. This guy? He's running a defense company? Hammer looked like a joke. The kind of man who trips over his own press releases. He tried to argue. Stark buried him with evidence, hacked satellite footage of Hammer's failed test units. James leaned forward. Permission to speak, Senator? The chair scowled. Who are you? James Gibson. Partner to Mr. Stark. Chairman of League Games. The room quieted. I have questions about the framing of this hearing. Let's start with energy. The arc reactor in Tony's chest, that's not just a power source. It's a breakthrough. It's clean, compact, and decades ahead of what anyone else has. He continued, voice calm and firm. You want to nationalize the Iron Man tech, but without that reactor, the suit is useless. Without energy, it's just a hunk of metal. New energy is the true game changer here. And unless the US government's got a reactor prototype hiding in the basement, it can't afford to duplicate this. He sat back. So let's stop pretending this hearing is about weapons. It's about power, literal and political. Tony stood up beside him. That's my partner, folks. Now do you see the difference between innovation and regulation? You want to control me? Too late. I've already helped the nation. I've neutralized threats you don't even know about. I'm Iron Man and I am the deterrent. A few people stood and clapped. Most stared, stunned. Americans loved their heroes. And Tony knew it. What else do you want from me? He said, gesturing to the cameras. I showed up. I gave you the benefit of the doubt. But I'm done working with this circus. He turned on his heel. James, let's go. James followed him out as flashes popped all around them.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! Hold up. Stop for a sec. Look, if you've already made it this far into the video and you're still here, Come on, subscribe, bro. Help a brother out, man. It's one tiny click for you, but it's a massive, and I mean massive, heck yeah for me. Plus, it keeps the algorithm from thinking I'm boring, and we both know that's a total lie. All right. I'm done. I'll get out of the way now so you can get back to the good stuff. Stick around and finish listening. It's worth it. Peace.
Chapter 55, New CEO. As they walked out of the hearing, Tony glanced at James. That speech back there? Impressive. And you're right, the US government really can't afford it. This was a setup, Tony. Someone wants the Iron Man suit. They're just dressing it up in patriotism to pressure you into handing it over. But clearly, they don't understand your personality. The more they push, the more stubborn you'll get. Tony frowned. You're saying that it's a ploy by someone else? Exactly. But this isn't the place to dig into it. They got into James's car. Hogan took the wheel of Tony's car, and Tony climbed into the passenger seat of James's car. They hit the freeway, pulling off hours later in a secluded area outside the city. There's a Nazi offshoot called Hydra that survived World War II. It's still around. And worse yet, it planted its roots all over S.H.I.E.L.D, James said bluntly. Tony blinked. What the hell are you talking about? Nick Fury said it himself. You're not the only superhero out there. Remember? Sure, but are you telling me this Hydra thing is real? James reached over. Give me your hand. Tony hesitated, then offered it. James closed his eyes. A subtle pulse passed between them. James's heart rate ticked up. Seconds later, he spoke. You're wearing the underwear Pepper bought you last week. Tony choked on his breath. All right, don't say that out loud. Everyone knows she's got my entire wardrobe on lock. Here's the kicker, palladium poisoning. Your arc reactor's slowly killing you. Left unchecked, you're not gonna last. Tony's face tightened. You can read that just from a touch? Among other things. James released his hand. I can control my own physiology too. My abilities are versatile. Okay, now I'm definitely never shaking hands with you again. James continued, there's more. A certain big green rage monster? He's real too. Not a superhero yet, but more of a walking natural disaster. Covered up, of course. I've seen some stuff. Thought it was a hoax, Tony muttered. Not a hoax. And Cap? He's alive. Tony's eyebrows rose. Captain America? I body slammed him on my first day at HQ. He wasn't amused. Tony grinned. You've had quite the start. They tried planting someone close to my dad. Bad move for them. I found out fast and dug deeper. That's how I discovered the Hydra rot inside S.H.I.E.L.D. Fury suspects it too. That's why he's building the Avengers, an external response team. Independent from S.H.I.E.L.D.'s control. Tony's expression turned serious. And you think this Avengers thing'll work? If we have enough leverage. Tony rubbed his chest. Well, any chance you can fix my poison problem with your adrenaline magic? James shook his head. Wouldn't work. My physiology is mutated. My blood won't help you. But S.H.I.E.L.D. knows about your situation. They're working on a solution. Tony scoffed. You and I can't fix it, but they can? Don't underestimate them. Remember Cap? That was World War II tech. They've been handling alien incidents since long before we were born. Their science division isn't flashy like you, but it's high-tech. Tony leaned back. All right. One crisis at a time. Let's head out. They boarded Stark's private jet and flew straight to California. I need to solve this poisoning fast, Tony said midair. You saw me drinking that swamp juice. I'm desperate. I'm not your cure, James said, but I caught something in your memories, something that might help. We'll see once we get it. Tony groaned. I really hate that you can do that. Back at the lab, Tony ran another test. Toxin saturation, 24%. Lovely. You're seeing this, right? What do you think I should do with Stark Industries? Simple, James replied. Hand it to Pepper. She's already handling everything anyway. You got a point, I've been too busy doing other stuff anyway. Tony muttered. Right on cue, Pepper walked in. Tony, did you donate your entire art collection? James raised an eyebrow. Did you really? Tony nodded. It's mine, isn't it? You could have told her first, James said. Those pieces took me 10 years to curate, Pepper said sharply, with brows crunched up. You didn't even consult me. Tony waved her off. We'll talk later. Besides, I've decided something else. I'm officially naming you CEO. You will have full authority to handle the company from now on. What? Pepper was shocked by the sudden news. James chuckled. Yeah, he's serious. I suggested it. Tony grinned. Exactly. You've already been doing the job. But now it's official. Pepper turned to James. You're here too, Ace? Yep. Watching your slow-motion love story play out in real time. I'm not feeling well today for such jokes, she deflected. Caught a cold. James shrugged. That's fine. Just know Tony's only real responsibility now is signing things off. That's all he wants to do anyway. Tony snapped his fingers. See? No difference. You already run the place. Might as well have the title. But the board won't argue, James cut in. Our stock is nearly maxed out. There's nothing to complain about. Besides, I own 3% now. You've got my vote. Pepper sighed. Fine. Let's get to work. Chapter 56, A Widow? At Stark Industries in California, Tony Stark was sparring in the ring with his bodyguard and driver, Hogan. James was watching from the sidelines, or more accurately, trying not to fall asleep from boredom. Clearly, the two of them were still enjoying their match. Pepper entered with a woman trailing behind her. James recognized her right away as Natalia Alyanovna Romanova, or most known as Agent Natasha Romanoff, the infamous Black Widow. She was indeed a beauty, but a little shorter than expected, slightly older, and her iconic Roman nose. That was about it. Tony, she's come here to notarize my appointment to CEO. I need your signature and handprint, Pepper said. Hi James, I noticed you this time. James almost wanted to cry. Was I even playing hide and seek with her? He didn't answer, he was too busy enjoying his feast. The coffee table in front of him was packed with burgers, hot dogs, and pizza. All while he was watching amateur sparring. Pepper, noticing the table in front of him, exclaimed in surprise. Wow. James, aren't you an agent? How can you eat like that and not get fat? Pepper stared in disbelief. Would you believe me if I said I can burn through all this food like I ate air? James said casually. Is there a secret? Nope. Special constitution. Then he kept eating. Meanwhile, Tony had Natasha step into the ring to approach him. They stared each other down briefly before Tony backed off. Pepper, where's she from? He asked. The legal department. And if you keep staring, you'll be hit with a harassment lawsuit. I need a new assistant. I've got 3 options lined up. We can talk after the interviews. I don't have time for that. I'll take her. Absolutely not. James raised an eyebrow. This is starting to feel like the first wife choosing a concubine. Then with a loud thud, Hogan fell off the ring, landing in an awkward angle during his fall. Tony was surprised but amused. James barely glanced up and went back to eating. He needed high calories daily. Cortana took care of digesting and converting it in high efficiency. When the match ended, Tony strolled over and grabbed a slice of pizza. James, we're heading to Monaco. Big race is coming up. Get ready. No problem. You're racing yourself, aren't you? James asked. Oh, you figured it out? Tony whispered. Of course. Like I said, there's a way to solve the palladium poisoning. It'll take some time. You don't need to keep overworking yourself. It's just a hobby. You planning to send out another Iron Man suit? You want one? No, it doesn't suit me. My ability is not suitable for the Iron Man armor. I can't simply use it at all. James' ability lies in his body. Wearing the Iron Man armor is equivalent to sealing his ability. Moreover, he is not interested in letting Cortana try to absorb energy in the current palladium reactor. Hey man, this is about life or death. In Monaco, police motorcycles cleared the road. Tony's Rolls-Royce followed behind. Inside sat Tony, Pepper, James, and the portable Iron Man suitcase. When they arrived, Tony stepped out to the applause. Hogan opened the door for Pepper. James followed from the passenger side. James, hear that? Cheers for me, Tony grinned. James chuckled. The 4 of them went in. Natasha, under the alias Natalie Lohman, had everything arranged. James sat, while Tony and Pepper started mingling. Meanwhile, league games were ramping up fast. The expo helped boost its visibility, and $150 million in ads hit streets and screens across the U.S. League of Legends began its full-scale propagation. Samira also started entering everyone's daily life everywhere. Users just passed 1.5 million and kept climbing. With success came attention. Studios started offering licenses for films, TV shows, and music. Revenue split 50-50 per click or download. A membership system launched. In just 3 months, League games turned profitable. James's name was spreading in tech circles. But he stayed out of the spotlight, leaving day-to-day work to Kyle. "James," Tony whispered, "toxicity's at 53%. I'm dying." James was enjoying steak. "Then it's about time. We'll head back. But Fury's going to show up first. You'll have to talk to him." Tony sighed. "Fine. I'll meet him. But first the race." His mood lightened immediately. "Can you really fix him?" Natasha appeared suddenly. James jumped slightly. "Seriously? Don't sneak up like that. Don't change the subject, answer the question. What does it have to do with you? You're just a legal worker, don't worry about your boss's business, okay? I'm Natasha Romanoff, S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, and technically your superior." James raised an eyebrow. "And so? What about it?" "I'll report this to Director Fury. He'll have instructions before you go back." With that, she walked off. The race was about to start. James finished his meal and moved toward the field's edge. Someone dangerous was about to make a move, and James was ready, his pistol already loaded. Chapter 57, Whiplash. As the race began, Tony Stark's car tore down the track, and James scanned the crowd for Ivan Vanko. A dangerous genius. The man had built his own weaponized rig using scrap parts almost like Tony's first Iron Man. Then he saw him. Ivan Vanko, wearing a makeshift battle suit built around a glowing arc reactor in his chest. His upper body is strapped with metal harnesses and power cables, feeding energy into 2 electrified whips attached to his arms. Being shirtless, showing off scars and tattoos, and wearing torn orange prison pants, giving him the look of a dangerous, unhinged genius who built a deadly weapon from scraps. The electric whip lashed out, slicing a car in half as it flipped down the track in a fiery roll. James picked up speed, weaving through the panicked crowd. His heart pounded. He jumped, landing on shoulders and bounding forward, until he reached the barricade. From under his jacket, he drew his twin pistols, Beretta 92F and M1911, S.H.I.E.L.D. registered, not local. Firing them here in Monaco was risky, but who cares? The crowd shrieked. Tony Stark's car was closing in. James raised his arm and fired. The bullet screamed through the air toward Vanko's exposed arc reactor, his crude harness offering no protection. But Vanko twisted and the shot clipped the edge of the housing, bouncing off. "Drop it now," James shouted, stepping onto the track. "Get down and disarm, or I won't miss next time." He held up both pistols. Ivan eyed the guns, he knew how many rounds they held. He was a fighter and a survivor. But James had the upper ground. "You gonna help the Starks?" Vanko growled. "These thieves. Tell it to the judge. You're on a track full of civilians, using an illegal weapon. Disarm now. You're a rich man's dog." "Wrong. I'm rich too. I just happen to like law enforcement. Now drop it." Vanko didn't answer. His eyes flicked toward the track. Tony's car was revving toward them. James noticed the change and reacted. Vanko moved, swinging a whip. James fired again. The round curved in the air as he shifted his wrist mid-shot. It struck a cable on Vanko's right whip, disconnecting it from its power source. The electric arcs vanished just in time as Tony's car blazed past intact. James didn't stop. He unloaded on Vanko's chest harness. Sparks flew. One by one, the mechanical parts failed and Vanko staggered. SWAT tackled him to the ground. James calmly approached and removed the reactor from his chest. "Should have built better," he muttered. Vanko laughed from the ground, coughing. "Tony Stark, your family are thieves. All of them thieves." Tony stepped through the chaos, eyeing the wreckage. "Hey, you stole my thunder. I was supposed to suit up and save the day." James rolled his eyes. "If I hadn't, you'd be in pieces. Look." He tossed Tony the stolen arc reactor. "Same build as yours." "Right. But first, let's hear it for the man who actually saved the day." Later, after the race, they visited Vanko at the local precinct. Tony had secured 5 minutes. They entered the holding cell and Vanko glared at them. Tony, curious more than hostile, said, "Pretty good tech. Your RPM's a little low though. I'd double it. You're getting decent output from the plasma tubing, but it's not efficient. Still, solid imitation. You could profit," Vanko said. "Sell it to any number of governments. Or just put it on the black market." Tony raised a brow. "That's not really my thing. You're a Stark. Your family are robbers. All thieves now pretending to be saviors. I'm sorry, where exactly do you think I stole this from?" "My father. Anton Vanko." "Never heard of him." Vanko sneered. "You will. I can wait for your death in this cell. Have you told anyone about your poisoning yet?" Tony smirked. "Sure. Him." He pointed to James. "Genius. Partner. And the guy who's going to save my life. Meanwhile, you get to rot here and watch us change the world." Vanko looked at James now and James met his gaze. "Everything you said came from your father. Maybe it's true, maybe not. But the record's not hard to check. It could be you're just another tragedy. You've got talent, though. Use it better next time." They left. Back on the jet, news played on the screen. A senator was making noise again. "He's back and he wants the suit," Tony said, bored. James just smirked. "They can't afford your reactor, Tony. That's what this is. If you give up the armor, they'll be back tomorrow for everything else you own." "Good point. I could vaporize an entire carrier fleet. What do they think they're doing? Thinking you'll play nice. You don't have to. It's a free country, right?" Pepper chimed in, horrified. "Are you two seriously planning a war? Stark Industries can't survive a standoff with the government." "They won't go that far," James said calmly. "You don't steal from billionaires and expect applause. And if we need to, we go public with Vanko's story. That shuts them down fast. He's not a replicable threat, and you, Tony, have the only energy source that works." Chapter 57, Whiplash. As the race began, Tony Stark's car tore down the track, and James scanned the crowd for Ivan Vanko. A dangerous genius. The man had built his own weaponized rig using scrap parts almost like Tony's first Iron Man. Then he saw him. Ivan Vanko, wearing a makeshift battle suit built around a glowing arc reactor in his chest. His upper body is strapped with metal harnesses and power cables, feeding energy into two electrified whips attached to his arms. Being shirtless, showing off scars and tattoos, and wearing torn orange prison pants, giving him the look of a dangerous, unhinged genius who built a deadly weapon from scraps. The electric whip lashed out, slicing a car in half as it flipped down the track in a fiery roll. James picked up speed, weaving through the panicked crowd. His heart pounded. He jumped, landing on shoulders and bounding forward, until he reached the barricade. From under his jacket, he drew his twin pistols, Beretta 92F and M1911, S.H.I.E.L.D registered, not local. Firing them here in Monaco was risky, but who cares? The crowd shrieked. Tony Stark's car was closing in. James raised his arm and fired. The bullet screamed through the air toward Vanko's exposed arc reactor, his crude harness offering no protection. But Vanko twisted and the shot clipped the edge of the housing, bouncing off. "Drop it now," James shouted, stepping onto the track. "Get down and disarm, or I won't miss next time." He held up both pistols. Ivan eyed the guns. He knew how many rounds they held. He was a fighter and a survivor. But James had the upper ground. "You gonna help the Starks?" Vanko growled. "These thieves. Tell it to the judge. You're on a track full of civilians, using an illegal weapon. Disarm now. You're a rich man's dog." "Wrong. I'm rich too. I just happen to like law enforcement. Now drop it." Vanko didn't answer. His eyes flicked toward the track. Tony's car was revving toward them. James noticed the change and reacted. Vanko moved, swinging a whip. James fired again. The round curved in the air as he shifted his wrist mid-shot. It struck a cable on Vanko's right whip, disconnecting it from its power source. The electric arcs vanished just in time as Tony's car blazed past, intact. James didn't stop. He unloaded on Vanko's chest harness. Sparks flew. One by one, the mechanical parts failed and Vanko staggered. SWAT tackled him to the ground. James calmly approached and removed the reactor from his chest. "Should have built better," he muttered. Vanko laughed from the ground, coughing. "Tony Stark, your family are thieves. All of them thieves. Tony stepped through the chaos, eyeing the wreckage. Hey, you stole my thunder. I was supposed to suit up and save the day. James rolled his eyes. If I hadn't, you'd be in pieces. Look. He tossed Tony the stolen arc reactor. Same build as yours. Right. But first, let's hear it for the man who actually saved the day. Later, after the race, they visited Vanko at the local precinct. Tony had secured 5 minutes. They entered the holding cell and Vanko glared at them. Tony, curious more than hostile, said, "Pretty good tech. Your RPM's a little low though. I'd double it. You're getting decent output from the plasma tubing, but it's not efficient. Still, solid imitation. You could profit," Vanko said. "Sell it to any number of governments. Or just put it on the black market." Tony raised a brow. "That's not really my thing. You're a Stark. Your family are robbers. All thieves now pretending to be saviors. I'm sorry, where exactly do you think I stole this from?" "My father. Anton Vanko." "Never heard of him." Vanko sneered. "You will. I can wait for your death in this cell. Have you told anyone about your poisoning yet?" Tony smirked. "Sure. Him." He pointed to James. "Genius. Partner. And the guy who's going to save my life. Meanwhile, you get to rot here and watch us change the world." Vanko looked at James now and James met his gaze. "Everything you said came from your father. Maybe it's true, maybe not. But the record's not hard to check. It could be you're just another tragedy. You've got talent though. Use it better next time." They left. Back on the jet, news played on the screen. A senator was making noise again. "He's back and he wants the suit," Tony said, bored. James just smirked. "They can't afford your reactor, Tony. That's what this is. If you give up the armor, they'll be back tomorrow for everything else you own." "Good point. I could vaporize an entire carrier fleet. What do they think they're doing? Thinking you'll play nice. You don't have to. It's a free country, right?" Pepper chimed in, horrified. "Are you two seriously planning a war? Stark Industries can't survive a standoff with the government." "They won't go that far," James said calmly. "You don't steal from billionaires and expect applause. And if we need to, we go public with Vanko's story. That shuts them down fast. He's not a replicable threat, and you, Tony, have the only energy source that works." Chapter 58, Potassium. "We might even have a new element that is even better as an energy source," James simply blurted out. "New element?" Tony Stark looked at James. "You solved my problem?" "Not me. But I guess someone did." "S.H.I.E.L.D.? "No." James shook his head. Technically, it was kind of S.H.I.E.L.D. Tony's father had been one of its founders. Just then, James's phone rang. He answered. "James, you found a way to detoxify Tony Stark?" "Yes, Director." He looked over at Tony and pointed to the phone. "What can I do for you?" "I heard from my agent that you have a cure for Stark. We'll wait for you at his villa. There's something we need to discuss with him. Then you can administer detoxification. That's not a bargaining chip. Understood?" "Understood. I can set it up. And I know the detox isn't a bargaining chip, don't worry. But shouldn't I be up for a promotion?" James smirked and winked at Tony. "We'll talk when we meet," Nick Fury said before hanging up. Dealing with James gave him a headache. Gifted, but with a mind of his own. "Tony, they're waiting for us at your place," James said. "We'll talk more there, whatever it is they want to talk about." "Yeah, sure. Let's get it over with." Once they landed back in the US, they drove back to Stark's villa. Nick Fury was already there, flanked by a full team, Phil Coulson, Maria Hill, and several agents. The living room felt small, packed with people. James strolled up to Hill. Well. Didn't expect to see the beautiful Maria Hill today. Still too busy to have dinner with me? Give us better intel next time and I just might have a free evening," she replied coolly. "That's not fair. Let's talk about dinner separately, otherwise I might think I'm losing my charm." Fury had already made himself comfortable, sipping from a glass of wine like he owned the place. "Mr. Stark, we were going to come later. We've been looking for a cure for your poisoning, but we only found a suppressor. James found something better, so we're stepping aside." "You were poisoned?" Pepper exploded. "Why didn't I know about this?" Tony sighed, glaring at Fury. "You did this on purpose, didn't you?" He turned to Pepper, softening. "I just didn't know how to tell you. But look, James has a solution now. I'm going to be okay. They continued bickering. James pretended not to hear. Their wavelengths were never quite the same. Anyway, Fury continued, Tony, your father was a founding member of S.H.I.E.L.D. He left something behind. We're here to give it to you. As for joining the Avengers, we'll discuss that later. Wait, James cut in. Didn't you say you had a suppressant? Use it now. His toxicity level is too high. James, seriously? Tony said, panicking. Fury nodded, and Natasha Romanoff stepped forward, smoothly injecting Tony in the neck. You're fired, he mumbled after suddenly seeing his new notary lawyer listen to Fury. Maria stepped in. Tony, this is Agent Natasha Romanoff. We placed her near you to monitor your condition. That injection only suppresses the toxin. It's not a cure. James, you knew? Tony asked. She said it back in Monaco. That's why today's meeting was arranged. Tony sighed. Fine. I'll play along. I'll join your Avengers. Fury handed him a file. Here's Natasha's assessment. Tony flipped it open and read aloud. Impulsive. I don't buy that, I'm very rational. Tendency toward self-destruction, okay, maybe that was the poisoning. Classic narcissist, I'll own that. Iron Man can join, but not Tony Stark? What does that even mean? You're accepting one side of me and rejecting the other. In your current state, we're offering you a spot as a technical consultant, Fury said. Tony raised an eyebrow but didn't protest. Fine. Since James is in, I'll join. Even as a consultant. James chuckled. That's not really your style. It is now. Maybe this team is where all the geniuses hang out. I'd like to compare notes. Fury stood. Agent Coulson will be your liaison. James too. Now if we can move on to other matters. We can talk after my clearance goes up, James interrupted. Right now I need to help Tony. That's the priority. No problem, Fury said. By the time you're back at the New York office, your new ID will be waiting. As Fury and the agents left, Pepper turned to James. Please cure him. Don't worry. We'll be in the lab for a while. Come on, Tony, time to see what your dad left you. They carried a box of old belongings down to the basement lab. James popped the lid. Shouldn't you treat me first? Tony asked. The answer's been right in front of you. You just haven't noticed it yet. Let's look first. Your sense of drama is exhausting. Fine, a notebook, some film reels. That's it. James asked. Tony, what was the most important thing your father left you? Stark Industries? The expo? He paused, realization dawning in his eyes. Wait, is there something in the expo? Chapter 59, War Machine. There is, but there was a major problem. What your father left behind had to be hidden. It's something too valuable to risk being found by the wrong people. But he also had to make sure you would find it. That's what I saw in your memory. The city of the future, that's what he left for you. What? This model? There's a secret to it? Tony asked, confused. What did you see? Let's just watch the documentary. The two sat down and started the film. Most of it was standard PR fluff, but near the end, Howard Stark began speaking directly to his son. The tone shifted. Serious and personal. When it ended, Tony sat back, stunned. You're right. The answer's been here all along. His mind churned. His father, dead for over 20 years, was still guiding him. It was surreal. James, we need a prototype. Come with me. No point. Your car won't fit it. And you probably want to say something to Pepper first, right? Be brave. I'll wait for you here. Tony paused, then nodded. You can try on my suits. JARVIS, give James access to the Iron Mans. Tony rushed off, while James stayed behind. Mr. James, JARVIS said, there are 5 Iron Man armors here. Mr. Stark also made one tailored for you. Due to your build, it's a custom model. James paused. That hit him unexpectedly hard. Even with all their sarcasm and joking, Tony had made him a suit. He might not need it, but he appreciated it. All right, let's suit up. He shrugged off his coat, removed his holsters, and let the robotic arms do their work. The armor was sleek, jet black. Tony had clearly noticed James's taste. Under the lights, the high-gloss finish looked like a luxury sports car had been forged into a battle armor. New energy source detected. Cortana, the AI inside James, reported. Warning, harmful substance to human physiology. Cannot be purified by your current systems. Absorption is not recommended. We'll wait for the new element then. Can you help me control this thing? No. Insufficient power reserves. Can't gain direct control of the suit. JARVIS, assist please. I'm not familiar with this interface. Understood, sir. Initiating guidance protocol. The armor walked him to the garage exit. Then the jets kicked in, launching James into the sky. Wrapped in the suit, he couldn't feel the wind, only see the world through the HUD. It wasn't what he expected. But he adjusted. Manual control enabled, JARVIS said. Mind your arm and leg vectors. James took the controls. It was rough at first, but Cortana silently guided his physical responses. Soon he leveled out, flying low over the ocean, testing control. Okay, this is actually pretty cool. No wonder he's addicted to this. Still, a shame about not feeling the wind. He looped back and landed. One more thing crossed off his bucket list. As he stepped out of the armor, a voice rang out behind him. Who are you? James turned to see a black man in uniform. Colonel Rhodes, right? Tony's out. But why were you here? It's chaos out there. Took everything I had to keep the brass from sending tanks. And he's not even home? No need to panic. Even if they rolled tanks, they wouldn't be able to handle Iron Man. Besides, is the military really going to rob a private citizen's property? Rhodes narrowed his eyes. You're Wesley Gibson, right? This isn't just business. No, Colonel. That senator isn't working for the American people, he's working for someone else. We're not going to hand over the suits. Even if they want a war. And please call me James, Wesley is my old life. What are you saying? James out of the suit slipped his holsters back on, then flashed his credentials. S.H.I.E.L.D. Level 3 Agent. Tony's now an official technical advisor. Our director will handle things from here. And just so you know, the Iron Man armor isn't a plug-and-play tech. Tony made one for me, but I can't even use it properly. Rhodey, noticing something in the background, looked over at the silver Mark II armor standing on a rack. Is that one for me? JARVIS? James asked. Yes, Mr. James. That model was intended for Colonel Rhodes, though Mr. Stark did not complete its final detailing. James smiled. See? Tony trusts you. If the military wants to feel like they've got a handle on things, let them think they have a suit too through you. Rhodey walked up and rested a hand on the armor. All right, I won't get to try it today. But I'll be back. Also, get your director on the line. Things are spinning out of control. James made the call. Director Fury? We've got a situation. People inside the government are gunning for the Iron Man tech. About time you said something, Nick Fury replied. You're holding back some intel. I'll report more after Tony recovers. First things first. Fine. He's our guy now. Go handle it. I'll deal with the military. Tony made a suit for Colonel Rhodes. I'll make sure he gets it once Tony's back. Noted. Tony returned soon after. All right, let's do this. James helped him set up the prototype for the new element, piecing together the scattered model of the city of the future. See? Your father left you a great gift, just not in the way you expected. Yeah. He was ahead of his time. We need updated equipment to synthesize the new element. Tony grabbed a heavy tool and began smashing through walls. James blinked. You're wrecking your own house? Tony grinned. We need more space. And I'm not swinging a hammer like those in the movies. James shook his head. Rich people. By the end, the once pristine villa looked like a construction site. Tony didn't care. He was completely absorbed, focused, and energized. James watched. This was what a real tech genius looked like. Chapter 60, Umbra Sentinel. After a long day, the lab was a mess. James took the pleasure of having a quick shower and crashed in the guest room available. The next morning, Tony and James had breakfast via delivery. They ate quickly, both being preoccupied. While waiting for the new equipment for the lab to arrive, James turned on the TV, only to see Justin Hammer's smug face on the news. He's holding a product launch in your expo building? James raised a brow. Tony scoffed. What product? He's a clown. Just ignore him. James narrowed his eyes. Something's off. JARVIS, pull all available data on Ivan Vanko. Understood, Mr. James. Tony leaned in. That guy's supposed to be dead. The records were sparse. The official report claimed Vanko had committed suicide in prison. James frowned. No way. That man wouldn't take himself out. And now Hammer's suddenly launching a new product? Feels too convenient. You're right, Tony said, finally taking it seriously. Let's prepare just in case. I'll start producing a few more reactors. And it's time you hand over the suit you made for Colonel Rhodes. Let him represent you on the military front. Just make sure the rights stay with him. If anyone else touches it, I'll blow it up, Tony muttered. Just then, the new equipment they needed arrived and they soon got to work. James, stand clear. I'm powering up the prism accelerator, Tony warned. The beam fired. A bright laser shot out and sliced through the air. James then quickly turned the valve, guiding the beam until it hit the triangular target metal. With the power shutting down, the two of them walked up to examine the result, an intense glow coming from the triangular core. It worked. Tony pulled the element out and slotted it into his reactor. Ah. Oh man. That feels incredible. James squinted at him. Tony, stop making those sounds. You're going to make people think something weird's happening in here. But it is great. I can feel it already. Tony opened his shirt, watching the toxic palladium traces fade. We did it. Come on, let's make a few more. They activated the system again and produced 5 more cores, bringing the total to 6 with Tony's. You gonna upgrade yours too? Tony asked, handing him one. No. I'm going to upgrade myself instead. Tony was confused on how a human body could upgrade itself. James picked up a spare reactor and gave a mental signal. Cortana is active. New element verified, clean, stable, usable. Begin absorption? Start it up. Let's see what you can do. A surge of energy rushed through his arm holding the new reactor. James felt it immediately, a wave of warmth and pressure that made his body hum. Ah. All right, that's intense. Tony raised a brow. Okay, now you're the one making weird sounds. What the hell are you doing? Upgrading. Talk later, James said, gritting through the surge. Brain enhancing at 10%. 20%, unlocking datasets, processing. 10 minutes passed, James clenching his jaw through it. The glow of the element began to fade in his hand. Upgrade ready. Please enter the first password to unlock Program 1. James focused. Program 1, obey my commands. The password triggered without him speaking it aloud. Program 1 accepted. Please enter Program 2. Program 2, protect my life at all costs. Another mental password, this time his old phone's lock code. Accepted. Initiating upgrade. Estimated time, 3 days. Body strength doubled. Energy reserves are low. Cortana will return upon completion. James let out a long breath, the spent element still warm in his palm. He looked at Tony, who was watching with confusion. Your new element is perfect. Tony narrowed his eyes. What just happened to you? As I said, my physiology's different. Your new element gave me the energy needed to trigger an upgrade. My body's now twice as strong as before. Seriously? That's insane. Can't you do more? There are more reactors right here. James shook his head. I'm still human. There's a limit to how far I can push it, at least for now. Tony stared. Okay, so aside from the big green guy, you might be the most overpowered person I know. James nodded. Now that we're done with the upgrades and know that it works great, what do you want to call this new element? Tony and James exchanged ideas, after several minutes and debates on what name they should give the new element. Both agreed to call it Podassium. Both liking the name since it sounds badass and strokes Tony's ego. Call Colonel Rhodes. It's time he suits up. I'm heading back to New York to grab my gear. When Hammer holds his press conference, I'll be on the perimeter. If they try anything, the 3 of us can shut it down. Good plan. You want some custom armor-piercing rounds? I could whip up a batch. No need. They won't have that kind of plating. My standard AP rounds will do just fine. Tony smirked. So what are we calling your suit? James thought for a moment. Umbra Sentinel? A Shadow Watcher? Well, it suits you being an assassin and all, Tony said. James suited back up, packed a small duffel with his coat and holster and launched skyward. At a glance, people thought he was Iron Man. He landed on the penthouse rooftop with a solid thud. Removing the armor took more effort than expected. "Gotta ask Tony for some robotic arms next time," he muttered. Carlos was already waiting for him to arrive. "James? Yeah, this is the suit Tony built for me. You could wear it too since we're about the same size. But taking it off? Not fun. We'll also need to upgrade the roof hatch for future landings." Carlos chuckled. "Busy lately?" "Not really. I think I can take a vacation soon. How's Hannah doing?" "She's great. Smart and capable. You picked well. That's just about her being an employee, of course. Got to work with her more to know her better." James smiled. "Glad to hear it." Chapter 61, Hammer Drones. James returned home late that night. By the next morning, he drove to the New York S.H.I.E.L.D. division to update his credentials, now officially being a level 4 agent. "Only one level? I guess it's better than nothing," he muttered, slipping the new ID into his pocket. After that, he headed straight to the expo grounds to scout for a viable sniper point. He needed a clear line of sight, but one that still offered enough cover. Flying was off the table. Until Cortana's upgrade finished, he would be relying on his raw skills. While James scoped out the site, Ivan Vanko was preparing himself. He'd built a special suit for himself and an entire regiment of iron drones, each remote-controlled and enhanced with the best materials Justin Hammer could give. Tony Stark was already on alert. He didn't have specifics, but he knew Vanko wouldn't pass up a second shot at revenge, not with Hammer bankrolling him. Tony called Colonel Rhodes. "Get used to your suit fast. We might need you soon for the grand reveal." The tension built quietly until Hammer's product launch finally began. "James, you ready?" Tony's voice came through the comm. He hovered nearby in full armor, waiting for the first sign of trouble. "Ready. I'm 2,300 meters from the main entrance. But I've got no angle on aerial targets. You get eyes on their new product?" "Yeah. Iron Soldiers. 4 types: Air Force, Navy, Army, and Marine Corps." "Figures. You handle the Air Force units. If the rest stay on the ground, I'll take care of them. But if they take off? I'm out. You sure you don't want to suit up yourself?" "Doesn't fit my style. Besides, if I do my job right, I only need 1 bullet per target. These bots are definitely remote-controlled. Keep an eye out for antenna placements." Today marked the end of Cortana's 3-day upgrade cycle, so she will come online soon. But for now, James was flying solo, no AI support and no assistive tech. He'd left his Iron Man armor behind on purpose. Too bulky for his adapted combat style. Tony checked in again. "I'll have Rhodes back you up if things go sideways. Hold on, I've got a call." He answered on speaker. Both Rhodes and James could hear it, Ivan Vanko gloating. "Well," Tony said, hanging up, "that's his declaration. Now it's our turn. I'll go in and draw fire. You two engage once they're in motion." "No," Rhodes argued. "That's my job. I'm a soldier. So let me lead." "It won't work. His target's me. So I'll go and that's final." With that, Tony launched into the air and streaked toward the expo. James adjusted the bipod of his Barrett M82A1 and lined up the scope. With no Cortana. Just using his learned skills and pure instinct. The magazine was already loaded with armor-piercing rounds. He racked the first round and took aim. 32 Iron Soldiers confirmed, 8 of each variant. "I'm going in," Tony said over the comms. He landed directly on stage and stared down Hammer. "Where's Ivan Vanko?" The entire line of robots turned to face Tony. Without hesitation, Tony shot skyward as the Iron Soldiers opened fire. The glass ceiling shattered under the barrage. 8 Air Force drones in pursuit, he shouted. "I'm on it," Rhodes confirmed, taking off to intercept. James, listening intently, asked, "You catch where the antennas are?" "In the head. All of them," Tony replied. "Perfect." James zeroed in on the main entrance. Civilians were fleeing in chaos. Behind them came the Army and Navy drones. His heart rate spiked. Everything slowed, focusing to the max. The moment the drones reached his line of sight, he fired. Boom! With no time to check the result. He cycled another round, lined up with the next target. Through the scope, he caught sight of a Navy drone from his first shot. its head obliterated, pieces raining down as he aimed at the drone just next to it. Boom. Second shot. He focused on the Navy drones. Their shoulder-mounted ordnance made them priority targets. Boom. Another kill. The remaining drones pushed down the front stairs, but 6 were already gone. James's presence hadn't gone unnoticed. Vanko had used the drone sensors to trace his location. Army units locked their feet in place and turned their guns toward his perch. 2 more Navy drones were disabled by James before they could act, all a clean shot to the antenna. With no signal, they were now broken tech. Incoming fire from the Army drone's shoulder-mounted autocannon. James didn't flinch. He dropped the rifle, drew his twin pistols, the Beretta 92F and M1911, and opened fire, not on the drones but on their incoming shells. His vision sharpened. His adrenaline surged. Time slowed. The trajectory of each shell became visible. Boom. 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 One by one he detonated them midair. The APHE, armor-piercing high explosive. Weak and easy to read, easy to intercept. Overhead, Tony and Rode finished off the 8 Air Force drones. But the last Marine drones still remained. All 8 of them launched into the air, now targeting Tony. James used the explosions as cover and hit the ground towards his sniper. He reloaded the Barrett, rolled into position and waited for the smoke to clear. Vanko focused on Tony, which shifted fire away from James. Another opportunity given. Boom. Reload. Boom. Reload. 8 shots in 14.4 seconds, each one precise, methodical, and lethal. Most people couldn't even control the recoil of the Barrett M82A1's .50 caliber rounds. But James wasn't most people. His enhanced body absorbed the recoil like an absolute tank. 16 confirmed kills, James said over comms. You 2 are moving too slow. Also, make sure to destroy the heads. Leave nothing behind. Chapter 62, Wasted Vanko. What? 16? Already? Tony stared in disbelief. Are you sure you didn't miscount? James replied with assurance, 1 shot, 1 kill. I told you this is easy work. Did they just stand still for you, huh? That must be nice, Tony grumbled. They didn't stand still. I was just faster. They fired, but I shot down their shells with my skills. Before they could fully adjust to shoot at you, I dropped all 8 of them with sniper rounds in about 15 seconds. Come on, Tony, give me some credit. That's called efficiency. I'd like to see you try it mid-air like me, Tony shot back. I'll show you later. Less talking, more clearing, James said. And remember, destroy their heads. Why target the heads? Rhodes asked over the comms. In case someone rigged them with explosives. Classic fallback tactic. Good point. Tony, let's finish the job, Rhodes said. The 2 teamed up, clearing out the remaining drones and ensuring their antennas were destroyed. But before they could regroup, a new figure entered the fray. James, Tony said over the radio, we've got a new contact. Can you get a shot? James raised his binoculars. Different from the rest. Custom armor. That armor might be too strong for standard rounds. Land and fight on the ground. That will give me a shot. Rhodes, let's head to the Central Garden, Tony ordered. Central Garden? Where's that? Follow me. Tony flew straight into the Expo Center's globe, a concealed ecological dome. James grunted. Of course you'd go to the one place I can't see. He relocated from the rooftop, jumped into his Chevy and repositioned near the garden. Climbing up onto a nearby structure, as he realigns the Barrett and looks down on the fight. Vanko had arrived in his own armor, more menacing, more rugged and wielding plasma whips like before, but thicker and more juiced up. James locked in. Grab the whips. Pull him apart. Turn his back toward the northeast. That's my angle, James instructed over comms. Could have picked an easier job, Rhodes muttered, but both men complied. They each grabbed a whip flailing at them. Sparks flew as plasma met reinforced suit plating. Bang! James fired, then cycled the bolt. Bang! As the second shot hit. Both bullets slammed into the plasma tubes at Vanko's shoulders. The whips fizzled instantly, losing power. Without pausing, James shifted aim to the back of Vanko's knee, where armor was the weakest. He fired again. The shot hit true, shattering a support bolt. Now left with an empty magazine. You sure you're not mistaking that for an assault rifle? Tony asked, half laughing from how fast and accurate he fired. James didn't reply. He was focused and frustrated. His current weapons weren't enough. S.H.I.E.L.D had nothing that could truly challenge high-level threats. What he did today worked against machines but against supervillains. He needed more. Vanko's suit was falling apart, joints locking up. But the man was relentless. He activated self-destruct. Red lights flared from his chest. The remaining drones were already out of commission with antennas gone. He had no more cards left. Rhodes, Tony, pull out. James shouted. Tony and Rhodes took off. The explosion was contained, with not enough to do serious damage. The expo grounds took a light hit. Justin Hammer, however, was not so lucky, arrested on the spot. James, you ever think about joining the Special Forces? Rhodes said, half joking. Your aim's ridiculous. James gave a dry laugh. Not funny. Tony chimed in. You want to recruit a billionaire S.H.I.E.L.D asset? Come on, Rhodey, he's out of your league. Don't be like that, Tony. There are still real wars going on. We need guys like him. Yeah? For what? Foreign skirmishes no one cares about? You know as well as I do, half those battles are just politics wrapped in ammo. James cut in. Drop it. I'm not joining the military. Tony's right, most foreign operations are a mess. Full of generals acting like politicians and backed by weapons manufacturers. Whatever threat they claim is out there. None of them are coming for the US. Tony nodded. Exactly why I stopped making weapons. You know what League Games is worth now? We just hit a $10 billion valuation. In 3 months. Venture capitalists are lining up with cash, and we're not even answering their calls. He wasn't exaggerating. League of Legends and the Samira messaging app were dominating the market. User counts surged daily. The American instant communication space was theirs for the taking. All right, you two rich boys, Rhodes groaned. I'll stop trying to reason with you. I'm heading out. You can keep the suit, Tony said. Just remember, property rights stay with me. You use it yourself or I take it back. Appreciate it, brother, Rhodes said, then departed. Tony turned to James. What now? I'm heading home. You should check in with Pepper. How's that going, by the way? No issues. I'll go find her now. Tony flew off in a flash of repulsor fire. James packed up and returned home. Carlos was watching the news when he walked in. Nice shooting, Carlos said, nodding as James set his gear down. It was good. But not enough. My weapons are limiting me. We need to talk about upgrades soon. Chapter 63, Cortana Upgrade. James sat down on the table and ate a light meal. After a quick wash, he lay down on the bed, waiting for Cortana's upgrade to complete. It was close to midnight when she finally responded, not through his retinal display this time, but directly into his mind. Upgrade complete. Her voice was clear, clinical, and for the first time, femininely vocal like Cortana. Wow, nice voice. Well? What's the upgrade? James asked quickly. Thank you. Integration successful. I've processed the previously downloaded data and developed your brain to 20% increased efficiency. You're now officially categorized as a genius. With effort, you could match Stark intellectually. That's not what I meant. What kind of abilities do I have now? I don't grant abilities. I'm not an alien tech from one of your novels. But my system architecture now surpasses JARVIS in both speed and range. So no new powers? James sighed, disappointed. Not exactly. I discovered something within you. Something that shouldn't exist in a standard human physiology. James sat up. Something in my body? Why didn't I know? It's not a foreign object. It's space fragments. Located within what I would define as your soul. James frowned. Soul, huh? But thinking back to his transmigration, it wasn't so hard to believe. Souls had to be real. Correct. Your arrival in this universe was likely due to soul displacement. I couldn't interact with it before. Now I can access it directly. These space fragments are forming an independent internal space, similar to a dantian in your web novels. James chuckled. I almost forgot I used to be a web novelist that involves cultivation. A failed one based on your archives. Touché, James said, unfazed. Skip the past. Let's talk potential. How do I improve? The internal storage space can eventually store items, gear, weapons, even your Umbra Sentinel armor. You could summon it instantly with a thought. However, that particular suit isn't optimized for your style. A redesign would be more effective. Keep going. We could replicate and adapt abilities from League of Legends. For example, Ezreal's energy weapon, his Q skill, Mystic Shot, and our skill, True Shot Barrage. Both are adaptable as long-range energy-based tech. James nodded. So my offense scales with energy. Makes sense. What about Gunfu? Bullet curve-style combat? Not viable yet. However, we can look at Caitlyn from Piltover. Her long-range sniper rifle and our skill ace in the hole offer a strong model. I can handle the targeting, though locking mechanisms will have range limitations. That's something worth having. James leaned back, absorbing the intel. My upgrades are still bound to this universe's current tech. If I had access to more advanced systems, I could push further. If we can obtain the Tesseract, there is a possibility that your potential increases exponentially. James sat up again. Tesseract? You mean the Space Stone? Correct. S.H.I.E.L.D. currently has it. If we secure it, your internal storage space could evolve further. It might even allow safe integration of cosmic energy. Can it block the Space Stone's gamma emissions? Yes. Your soulborn storage space is fragmented but stable. It was likely formed during your transition between realities. There is no better way to explain it, but it's isolated from the rest of physical space. And how do we build these weapons? We'll need Stark's lab. You don't have the tools to build precision weaponry. But I am able to draft a blueprint based on the available weapons data and behavior as well as the tech and discoveries of this world. Great. I want a modular shoulder and arm-based system. No connection points needed. Understood. But the reactor needed will be larger than the standard core. Think of it like a proto-gauntlet rig. What about the Tesseract? How would I use that if I ever got it? If it recognizes you as its bearer, it will manifest as a true gem, just like those embedded in the Infinity Gauntlet. James narrowed his eyes. Recognition? That sounds vague. It is. There's no method to force resonance. If your internal storage space aligns with its energy signature, it might respond. But it's chance-based. Chance? Since when do AIs believe in luck? As an intelligent system, I don't. But even I have limitations. Some outcomes depend on incalculable variables that are yet observable or readable due to limiting technology. James smirked. That almost sounded human. I like it. Let's start designing. Beginning prototype layout. Be aware, the new reactor will bulk up your left arm unit. Like the Tesseract isn't bulky. If I manage to get it, how the hell would I even carry it? If bonded, it becomes compact. Until then, we adapt. They continued the design process for hours. Sometime after 3 a.m., James's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. Phil Coulson. More and more people had his confidential number now, especially with his growing public profile as a tech founder. James, sorry to call this late, Coulson said. But we need you in New Mexico immediately. Something unusual just hit our radar. Tony? That mission's done. Your assignment with Stark is complete. This is new. You're needed on site. James's mind shifted gears immediately. New Mexico. Something unusual. Thor. He remembered the lore. The hammer. The desert. And the destroyer. If that armor showed up, it wouldn't go down easy, not even with the new weapons. And he definitely wasn't ready. Chapter 64, Jasper Sitwell. James hung up and started packing. He had no idea how long he'd be gone this time. A change of clothes, essential gear, and a handwritten note for Carlos were all he left behind. Thinking of Carlos, it had been a while since they'd spent any real time together. Once this was handled, he planned to take some proper leave. He headed downstairs and drove off in the S.H.I.E.L.D.-issued Suburban, bound for the military airfield on the outskirts. The trip was fast. A transport plane was already waiting when he arrived. Phil Coulson greeted him with a cold can of Coke once they were airborne. You handled that last operation well, Coulson said. Director Fury's impressed. I didn't do it for him, James replied. When's the next promotion? Not up to me, Coulson said. But these missions are important. Stay sharp and I'll make sure you keep moving up. I'll hold you to that. Coulson changed the subject. You going to tell me what you really know? About the internal problems in S.H.I.E.L.D. James glanced at him. Are you sure we're secure? Coulson hesitated, then nodded. Understood. For now it's just us. If we spot anything serious on the ground, we'll call in more support. Can we talk then? Maybe. Let's see what we're walking into first. James leaned back in his seat. Wake me when we land. Cortana, sleep cycle, deep. Confirmed. Phil watched James drift off in seconds. He didn't wake him, just laid back and tried to rest himself. But his mind was spinning. S.H.I.E.L.D. had long suspected internal corruption, yet they couldn't trace it. They were missing something critical. The plane touched down at a New Mexico military base the next morning. They hit the road fast, with Phil driving. The landscape was wide open, empty. They made good time on the trip. When they arrived, James saw it instantly, a crater, and a group of locals gathered around like it was a party. Phil called Fury. Director, we're on site. Heading in now. Understood. He looked over. James, let's go. They approached the crater, being two men in suits, immediately drawing stares from the gathered crowd. Phil pulled out a radiation detector and waved it slowly across the air. People instinctively backed away. No radiation. At least not anymore, he said, stepping into the pit. James joined him and looked down at the center. The hammer. Phil reached out and tried to lift it. Nothing. James stepped forward, gripped it with both hands, and nothing again. If the Tesseract ever recognizes you, maybe you could lift it, Cortana said. James responded silently. Not interested. Even if I could, it's useless for me. He turned to Coulson. What's next? We hold here. I'm calling in backup. While Coulson made the call, James turned to the civilians. Listen up. We are the Strategic Homeland Intervention, Enforcement and Logistics Division. What just landed came from space. We don't know what it is or the danger it poses. You need to clear the area and keep this quiet. Predictably, someone spoke up. The government again? Who are you to ruin our fun? Stay if you want. When backup gets here, you'll be standing inside a classified federal perimeter. This falls under U.S. constitutional jurisdiction. All alien materials belong to the state. That shut them up. Most packed up and left without another word. James looked around. Where's Thor? Reinforcements arrived fast. A mobile response team secured the area and started erecting a perimeter. Then James spotted a familiar face. Agent James, this is Agent Jasper Sitwell. A level 6, Phil said. Sitwell, this is Agent James. I assume you've heard of him. James smiled and reached out. Just joined S.H.I.E.L.D., hoping to move up fast. Got any tips? He didn't let go of Sitwell's hand. Phil tilted his head, something felt off. Sitwell was equally confused. He never heard James being this friendly. Inside, James was analyzing him. Confirmed. Embedded Hydra asset. Cortana flagged the identifiers. James let go after the confirmation. Thanks. I'm sure you'll help however you can. He turned quickly. By the way, we haven't eaten since last night. You guys bring anything? The question caught both agents off guard, but Sitwell pointed him toward the field kitchen. James left immediately without saying any more words, pretending he was really hungry. While he ate, the team went to work. They erected a steel frame around the hammer, stretched plastic sheeting over it, and built enclosed walkways. One tunnel led to a diesel generator, the other connected to the mobile lab full of sensors and analysis gear. Barbed wire enclosed the outer perimeter. After dinner, James took a short nap under the open sky. By the time he woke up, the moon was high. He headed to the command post, saw that everything was running smoothly, and gave Coulson a nod. I'm heading to the top ridge for Overwatch. If anything happens, call me there. He grabbed a raincoat and stepped into the cold night. Coulson didn't question it. James's role here was security after all. And if anything came out of that crater, or fell from the sky again, he'd be ready. Chapter 65, Thor, the Unworthy. It didn't make sense for a billionaire to be on duty, but since he volunteered, Phil didn't call him back. Maybe he really did enjoy it. James just wanted to find Thor first and let him try to lift the hammer. He wasn't actually interested in standing guard. He liked being an agent, but that didn't mean he liked night shifts. At the top of the iron frame, 2 S.H.I.E.L.D. assault team members were already stationed. James didn't bother to speak to them. Most of the assault teams at HQ were Hydra moles. No reason to get chatty. He threw on a raincoat and started scanning the surroundings with a night vision scope. It wasn't raining yet, but it would. Wherever Thor went, thunder and lightning followed. James watched for a while, then got bored and wandered the platform. Before long, the sky started to rumble. He took out his phone. The signal was unusually strong. Electromagnetic activity increasing, Cortana noted. Looks like Thor's here. Begin a passive scan. James didn't bother with the scope anymore. It couldn't match with Cortana's tracking, but keeping her active too long used up too much energy. Soon he spotted a man and a woman. The man had long blonde hair and took off his coat to wrap around the woman. It looked like he was getting ready for something. That was Thor. James raised his binoculars again and locked on the target. He watched as the man carefully approached the perimeter. Thor forced open the barbed wires. Even without his power, he was still strong. He slipped inside, but when he looked up, he saw dusty leather shoes and a smiling face above him. It was James. "Hello. What's your name?" James asked with a friendly tone. "Thor, God of Thunder," the man answered straightforward. "James Gibson. Nice to meet you. Came for the hammer?" "Yes. I have come to retrieve it." "Then come with me," James said, turning to lead him in. But Thor didn't move. He hesitated. "What are you trying to do?" Thor asked. "I'm taking you to the hammer. What's the problem?" James replied, confused. "You want to trick me?" "Led me inside and bound me," Thor said, more sure of it now. James raised an eyebrow. "You're overthinking. That hammer has patterns recorded in our mythology. And you came along, a blonde athletic man, looking Norwegian. I doubt you know who we are or what we're capable of. So I'm guessing you're not from here. Am I wrong?" Thor hesitated again. Just then a S.H.I.E.L.D. squad ran over and pointed their weapons at him. James raised his hand. "Stand down. Do your job. Nothing more." "Agent James, your level clearance isn't high enough to order them," came a voice from behind. Clint Barton walked up with a bow on his back. James didn't care. Level aside, pointing guns at someone like him is a good way to make enemies we don't need. He says the hammer is his. I'm letting him try. If he can't lift it, fine. If he can, we'll know more. "I get that you're special," Clint said, "but S.H.I.E.L.D. has protocols. I'm not breaking any. Just starting with respect. We don't need a galactic war. If he lifts that hammer, then he's not some lunatic. If he can't, then it's just a failed retrieval attempt." Clint paused. He had no response. James turned to Thor. "Let's go." He walked. Thor hesitated, but then followed. He'd heard everything. James wasn't hostile, just practical. Phil watched from the monitor and finally spoke. "Hawkeye, let them through. Clear the area. Everyone back away from the crater." James and Thor walked all the way to Mjolnir without any fuss. "I consider you a friend now," Thor said. "You've shown me trust." James didn't answer. Thor stepped forward, grabbed the handle of the hammer, and pulled. Nothing. He tried again using both hands, gritting his teeth. Still nothing. The clouds roared. Rain finally poured down. Then Thor dropped to his knees. "Ah!" he screamed at the sky. James stood there, watching. "He's not worthy yet. It's not Odin doing, it's him." "Hey," James said. "No need to break your lungs. Come inside, get some hot water, and think it over." "You still trust me?" Thor in despair asked. "Why not? You were confident before. Now you're devastated. Your eyes tell the truth." "So I believe you," James said. He turned and Thor followed. They went to the command center. James had someone set up a small table, 2 chairs, and hot water. Chapter 66, Thor's Sadness. "Drink some hot water. When you calm down, we can talk again. If you want, you can tell me your story. Here's a towel. Wipe off the rain. I'm going to check in with my boss for a sec," James said before stepping out. Unusual energy fluctuation detected. Based on film data, Loki may be present. However, I cannot confirm visually through your eyes, Cortana said. "Don't worry about him. We're not ready to deal with that yet. We'll come back to it later." James walked straight to Phil. "You're sure he's the hammer's owner?" Phil asked. "More or less. Doesn't seem fake. I don't think he's from Earth, he's not local, and neither is that hammer," James replied. "You recognize it?" Sitwell asked from nearby. Don't you read mythology? You must have seen that as a kid. James went over to a nearby computer and started typing. A moment later, a reference image of Mjolnir popped up on screen. Look. Same markings. And the guy's name is Thor. His confidence in telling me that earlier and that sadness later, remember, it was sadness, not depression. Mythological figures? You serious? Hawkeye asked. James shrugged. In ancient times, people didn't have science. So they saw advanced beings as gods. Doesn't mean it's all stories. Think of them as aliens. Does that make more sense now? Aliens? Phil repeated. You really think that? I can't say for sure yet. I haven't talked to him enough. But if he is one, what he says should follow a logical structure. In the meantime, get some food sent over, something hot. I'll speak to him again. Oh, and while I was sleeping earlier, did you guys move anything? Phil paused. We collected the research notes from a female scientist, Jane Foster. Got it. James nodded and headed back to the room. Thor looked even more down than before. Loki must have just shown up and twisted things again. Probably told him Odin's dead. James approached. You look worse than before. Something happened while I was gone. My father, he's dead. Because of me. I should stay exiled. Wanna tell me your story? If you have someone to share your pain with, your pain will be halved. If someone shares their happiness with you, your happiness will be doubled. Thor looked up, caught off guard. That's an interesting way to say it. Food arrived, burgers, mashed potatoes, and coffee. Typical field rations, but hot enough. Let's eat and talk. We got time. I can get you wherever you need to go in the morning. Besides, it's pouring outside. While Jane Foster was still trying to find a way to help him, she wasn't in a rush. Thor wasn't a prisoner. He'd walked in willingly. Thor began sharing his story. He spoke of being a warrior who defied his father, of the 9 realms and Bifrost, the World Tree, and being cast out, unable to lift Mjolnir anymore. The more he spoke, the more James listened, taking in how wide the world really was. They talked until dawn. Thank you for listening, Thor finally said. But I think it's time I leave. You got a place to go? There's someone, but I think your people took her belongings. No problem. We'll return what we can. It's just inspection protocol. If the research isn't dangerous, she'll get it back. Some things are above our current understanding, and it's my job to make sure nothing breaks the planet. James led Thor out and picked up Jane Foster's notebook. Here. Give her this. The rest were still reviewing. I'll take you to her. He drove Thor into town. Sir, are we really just letting him go? Sitwell asked behind him. We just brought him a meal, didn't we? Phil said with a small smile. His answer surprised the team, but it was hard to deny. Whether Thor was an alien or not, he couldn't lift the hammer. At the moment, he wasn't a threat. James pulled up to the familiar studio where Jane, Eric Selvig, and Darcy Lewis were having coffee. Thor stepped in. Jane jumped up. You're okay. Sorry to worry you. Thor handed her the notebook, wrapped in black leather, thick with notes. Thanks to a new friend. This is James Gibson. He's S.H.I.E.L.D, Darcy said, narrowing her eyes. You're the ones who took our data. James gave a small chuckle. Don't worry. Your research isn't being erased. It's just being reviewed. If there's no threat, it comes back. That's our job. Think about it, without someone checking this stuff, would you really be able to work in peace? Some scientists ignore risk for the sake of progress. That's where we come in. That shut them up. They'd shouted plenty when S.H.I.E.L.D took their gear, but hadn't stopped to think about the bigger picture. Come in, have some coffee with us, Dr. Selvig said, inviting James to sit. The place was quiet right now. Thor and Jane were deep in conversation. It felt oddly natural, maybe fate. James figured Thor was telling his story again. He sipped coffee quietly, watching and waiting. Someone from Asgard should have shown up by now. Thor's story was supposed to move fast, days, not weeks. But no one came. And James knew he couldn't stay here much longer. Chapter 67, Friends of Thor. James returned to the crater. Phil, noticing his arrival, walked straight up to him. How's the man doing? Stable. Nothing alarming for now. But we should have agents spread out in town, low visibility. No aggressive posture, just eyes everywhere. Also, monitor the environment for anomalies. That's it. That's it for now. But if anything unusual happens, report it immediately. I don't think this place is going to stay quiet for long. Got it. I'll put Hawkeye in charge of this area, Phil said. James found a laptop and asked Cortana to record his current gear concept. He reviewed the designs, an independent arm-mounted system for energy projection, and a metal backpack that could unfold into a long-range sniper rifle. The barrel used energy refraction to fire metal slugs, essentially a mobile electromagnetic cannon. This feels clunky, James muttered. Too much weight for too little return. Recoil's too high. It'll burn out my stamina and energy reserves fast. Not sustainable in a prolonged fight. Agreed. Splitting the systems is inefficient. I suggest integrating them with the Umbra Sentinel suit. You're not a close-range fighter. Medium to long range is your advantage. Yeah. Makes sense. I'll need Tony's help. Probably best to hit his place directly. His home lab's fully equipped. Not right now, though. But once Thor's story wraps up, we're heading toward the New York invasion arc next. I want to make a name for myself in that one. One shot. And all eyes on me. He purged the design from the laptop. Too sensitive to leave behind. And still, no sign of Thor's people. What he didn't know was that unlike the movie's fast pacing, real time moved slower. Thor's friends were being watched and are trying to break surveillance just to reach Earth. A few days passed. Still quiet. James visited town once to check on Thor. He is currently doing fine. James returned the rest of Jane Foster's confiscated gear. Phil had signed off on it. Today, James rolled back into town. It was a small town. Slow-paced life. Locals had time to chat in the cafe and complain about the rain. James still here? Thor asked with a half-smile. Studying the hammer? Something like that. As long as the hammer's stuck, we can't exactly walk away. You planning to lift it anytime soon? Thor sighed. Not likely. You're second-guessing yourself. It followed you here. It still recognizes you. You're the one who doesn't believe anymore. How can the hammer trust you if you don't? Maybe. I haven't figured it out yet. Thor is just looking sad and lost. Take your time. I don't think this is over. Something big's still coming. What do you mean? If your story's true, someone should be coming for you. At the mention of someone coming for him, the tension on Thor's face eased up a little, but someone will indeed come. I just don't know when. You have to understand, the average Asgardian lifespan is around 5,000 years. James gave a low whistle. That's a lot of birthdays. Right then, a multicolored beam tore down from the sky in the distance. Something had arrived. James bolted to the highest point in town, where S.H.I.E.L.D. had agents posted. He grabbed a pair of binoculars and scanned the horizon. 4 armored figures were approaching, 3 men and 1 woman, all with primitive weapons and warrior posture. He grabbed the radio. Evacuate the town now. Get everyone in their cars and away from the area fast. James, what's going on? Phil radioed. Thor's people just arrived. And that means his enemies will follow. You must be joking. That unstable guy's family is here? Let them take him and go, Barton said, irritated. You don't have to agree with me, James said. But if we don't clear this town, any casualties are on you. He tossed the radio aside and ran down, flashing his ID and waving civilians out. The destroyer was coming. James knew it. That thing wasn't made of normal metal. He couldn't even guess how it was built. Even Asgard struggled to damage it. Aside from Mjolnir, there was nothing James had that could scratch it. Please evacuate immediately. I'm with the Strategic Homeland Intervention, Enforcement and Logistics Division. There's a dangerous threat inbound. Get your family and go. Bring only valuables. You can return once we contain the area. Some civilians looked skeptical. The S.H.I.E.L.D. badge didn't carry the weight of the CIA or FBI. What bureau is that? Never heard of it, one guy muttered. Still, enough people saw the urgency in James's eyes to start moving, which alerted the others to follow Oswell. Phil gave the word to follow James's judgment. Barton didn't like it, but the call wasn't his to make. He stayed near the crater. The town wasn't his problem anymore. Agents scattered to help with the evacuation. Meanwhile, the 4 Asgardians had found Thor. There were hugs and quick words. Then they noticed the growing commotion. Thor spotted James on the street. My friend, what's happening? James didn't answer directly. Those 4 armored folks, they're here for you, right? Yes. They're my friends. Come, let me introduce. Hold up. I need to clear the civilians. If they're here, something worse is coming right behind them. Thor frowned. What do you mean by that? Chapter 68, Destroyer appears. It means someone's coming to kill you, James said seriously. Why would they? My friends just came to see me. Maybe they disobeyed the new king's orders, but I doubt it's that serious, Thor replied skeptical. You should go talk to them. Maybe you'll get some answers, James said, turning back to evacuate more civilians. Most of the townspeople weren't taking it seriously. They grabbed a bit of cash and left in their cars, bringing only what they could. Phil arrived with a team and walked up to James. Are you sure something's about to happen here? Yes. Thor's people, the ones from the realm he mentioned, those 4 right there. James pointed at the armored group in the distance. See what they're wearing? You sure this isn't just a play? They dropped out of the sky, Phil. I saw it, you saw it. There's no doubt. Now help clear the area and request for backup. This place might get leveled. Their power systems don't match ours, and whoever's coming next might not be in our league. Phil hesitated, then gave a nod. He trusted James, he had to. James wasn't just a regular agent. He had a foot in both S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Avengers Initiative. All right, I've got your back. If there's fallout, I'll take the heat. Phil, even if this turns out to be nothing, worst case scenario, it's a drill. And no one's gonna hold that against me. Meanwhile, Thor was catching up with his friends and learning the truth. His father was still alive. Loki had tricked him. He walked back over to James, visibly confused. My friend, how did you know? Know what? James asked, playing it off. That I was deceived. You knew, didn't you? James shrugged. Not really. But come on, think about it. You're the one who can lift Mjolnir and they exile you? Something about that doesn't add up. If someone wanted to keep you away from Asgard, the easiest way would be through lies. It's a pretty standard tactic. You'll understand better after you've seen a few more Earth TV shows. TV shows? I've watched a few recently. They're surprisingly amusing. But I didn't see anything like that. Yeah, well, don't watch the ones with too much romance. Watch ones where guys get double-crossed. Then you'll get it. Thor looked puzzled. I don't fully understand, but I'll try to find one like that. He walked off again. Jane Foster and the others were still nearby, discussing whether they should leave. James figured they should. The two seemed close now, even if they were arguing about it. Just then, another rainbow-colored beam struck the ground in the distance. James's heart rate spiked. He had no gear with him, but S.H.I.E.L.D. wasn't short on weapons. Sprinting to the town's highest point, he snatched a pair of binoculars from an agent and looked in. There it was. A massive metal figure. Phil, James called over the radio, we've got incoming. Enemy contact confirmed. What is it? A metal giant. It's not a robot. Can't read its power system, but it's moving right towards us. Get the last of the civilians out. And tell every S.H.I.E.L.D. agent to fall back. I'll stay with Thor and his team. Can you stop it? Probably not. Our weapons won't cut it. The best chance is if Thor can lift Mjolnir again. That may be the only way to stop it. So everything you've said is real. Phil, people fell from the sky. I'm not making this up. This town might not survive the next hour. Make sure no one's left behind. Time was short, but luckily the town wasn't big. People drove out, some were reluctant, but a group of serious-looking agents with badges made the message clear. James began gathering gear from S.H.I.E.L.D. vehicles, rifles, sidearms, and grenades. He had his own pistols, but they wouldn't do much here. He grabbed a bolt-action sniper rifle, the M40A5. No chance of killing the destroyer with it, but at 800 meters he could at least create a distraction. He pocketed a few grenades, then gave Cortana the signal. Internal space activated. The grenades disappeared into storage. James headed for high ground. He wasn't going to strike first. The destroyer had range. He had no idea what kind of range, but it was better to let Thor's people engage first. Then he could provide support. With the town cleared and Thor's team moving, the 4 warriors prepared for combat. Lady Sif was the only woman among them, but she carried herself like a battle-tested fighter. The others flanked her with disciplined aggression. James watched from his sniper spot, 800 meters out from the main road. He would have preferred 1,000 meters, but at that range, bullet impact would weaken too much. The largest of Thor's companions rushed in. Lady Sif flanked from the side. Solid tactics. But they didn't have the firepower. Cortana, anything on the destroyer? No. Asgardian tech structure and energy readings are outside Earth standard ranges. Even with similar form factors, the core mechanics are fundamentally different. I'm guessing the energy's in the chest. If I hit it dead center, what happens? Unknown. Without more data, I can't determine the energy type or containment structure. James exhaled slowly. I need to get to Asgard someday. Learn what they're actually using up there. Phil watched the fight through the binoculars. Sif had climbed onto the destroyer's back, extended her sword and jammed it down into its core. It staggered, pinned to the ground for a second, but it wasn't enough. The destroyer's body twisted unnaturally. James, can you give them cover fire? Phil asked. I can try. But don't stand near me, I have no clue how far that thing can shoot. If it sees my muzzle flash, I might not get a second shot. Chapter 69, Destroyer's Flaw. James told Phil to pull his team back. He wasn't looking to play hero. He wasn't trying to sacrifice himself, he was just confident he could avoid whatever the destroyer threw at him. And truthfully, this wasn't about saving the Earth or humanity. It was about progress. James needed to get closer to the Tesseract, the space gem. If possible, he wanted to claim it for himself. Even if that wasn't feasible, just being near it might allow him to absorb some of its energy. Right now, his entire plan revolved around personal strength. This was the Marvel Universe, or something close enough. It was the only name he could use to separate it from his original reality. In this place, power was everything. If he wanted to survive and live comfortably, he had to become stronger. S.H.I.E.L.D. was just a stepping stone to something bigger. And besides, he liked the mystery, the thrill of it all. His heart started pounding. Since his last enhancement, his heart rate could spike above 500 BPM during combat without his heart exploding or his veins popping from the pressure. Normal human heart rates ranged from 60 to 100. Athletes sometimes clocked lower. But James? He'd gone beyond. At 500 plus BPM, his strength, reflexes, and cognitive speed were 7 to 8 times that of a normal human. But unlike Captain America, his state couldn't be maintained long, it drained nutrients fast. Steve Rogers had a drug-enhanced body with long-term efficiency. James didn't. And Cortana couldn't reverse engineer the genetic code yet. Everything slowed down as Cortana processed trajectory and environmental variables. James stood, bracing the sniper rifle, left hand on the barrel guard and finger on the trigger. Bang! The 7.62mm round flew from the barrel, trailing air current. James tracked it through the scope. Down below, the destroyer had just knocked Sif away and was preparing to fire. Its faceplate opened, energy charging in its core. The bullet entered the helmet, ricocheted, and struck something inside. A small explosion burst from within. Nothing major, but it staggered the destroyer, interrupting its attack. Then it raised its head and locked onto James' location, 800 meters away. Huh. That actually worked, James muttered. Confirmed. Minor internal explosion detected. Structural integrity still intact. Energy core location is confirmed to be internal, but direct destruction is unlikely. What about grenades? More effective, theoretically. But close proximity is extremely dangerous. James smirked. Yeah, but nothing beats getting close to danger and feeling like a hero. He stowed the rifle. The destroyer hadn't shown any signs of firing yet. Either it couldn't, or it didn't think he was worth it. Phil, I'm going in. Don't follow. James jumped into a S.H.I.E.L.D. vehicle, tossed his gear into the seat beside him, and floored the gas. The engine roared as he shifted gears and tore through the town. Thor stood up in the distance in front of him as if to stop him, but James wasn't backing off. He turned the wheel and hit the brakes hard, then gas it to start slipping, spun into a controlled drift. The rear of the car slid wide, but didn't touch Thor, successfully avoiding him. Then James hit the accelerator again. The destroyer's faceplate opened. Energy swirled inside. James pulled out his Beretta 92F with his right hand and fired out forward, shattering the front windshield. Bang, bang, bang. The bullets went inside its face, bounced inward, and disrupted the energy buildup once again. The destroyer twisted violently once more, faceplate shifting close and open. Cortana dropped 2 grenades on James' left hand. As they drove close to the destroyer, he hurled the grenades already cooking inside the faceplate, timing it just right as it opens. James drove past the destroyer as the grenades exploded. Seeing minimal damage, the car lurched as James slammed the brakes. In a smooth motion, he walked out the car, going face to face with the destroyer. I really didn't want to use this. Cortana, deploy the Umbra Sentinel, chest and arm. Deploying. Sleek black plating unfolded from his chest to the right arm, locking into place with metallic clicks. The arc reactor on his chest surged to life. His right hand locked into its target, snapped forward with a sharp whine as it powered up. The destroyer regains control once more, facing toward James and opening its faceplate, light building fast, forming the familiar deadly glow. It had regained its stance, starting to rechannel the Odin force for another blast. James didn't hesitate. Bracing himself, powering the repulsor on his hand to maximum, and let Cortana sink his shot. Target locked. Core stability rising. Fire now. A blinding pulse ripped from his hand. The repulsor blast screamed through the air and punched directly into the glowing slit of the destroyer's faceplate, just as it began charging its beam. The result wasn't subtle. A violent spark chain burst from inside the construct. Its armor spasmed, then twisted as internal power feedback surged through its body. The glow inside its head snapped off like a light bulb exploding from the inside. Thor stared, stunned. James had no reason to fight this battle, yet he was doing it anyway. But James wasn't thinking about that. He was thinking about not dying. The destroyer swelled unnaturally. Its plates bent and bulged. The Warriors 3 grabbed Thor and ran. James went back in his car and drove fast. Then came the real explosion. Whumph! The destroyer detonated. The shockwave leveled the town, flattening buildings and tearing through the streets. A massive energy surge followed it. James had made it out of town, but not far enough. The shockwave slammed into him and launched the car many meters ahead. James got flung out through the open driver door since he had no seatbelt on. Adjust trajectory. Follow my lead, Cortana said. James twisted his body midair, stretching out his limbs and using his right-hand repulsor, angling his body to kill spin and bleed velocity for a safer landing. He landed hard, feet first, rolled with the momentum, and tumbled across the dirt like a parkour professional launched from a cannon. When the dust settled, he looked like someone who'd been buried alive. Covered in dirt, coughing up dust, he stood and brushed himself off as he quickly stored the armor back in his storage space. His mouth tasted like sand. He turned and looked back. The town was gone. But the fight was over. James started walking towards what was left. Chapter 70, Thor leaves. Looking at the ruins of the town, James wondered if he had gone a little overboard, but it didn't matter. The destroyer was destroyed. The aftermath is S.H.I.E.L.D's problem. The only issue remaining is Thor. To let the guy go home and swing his hammer at whoever sent that monster. James, are you all right? Thor asked, walking over, his face still dusty. I'm fine, James said. But you should really go pick up that hammer and get back to your world. You've got someone up there that needs a lesson. Thor's expression darkened. I can't lift it. Even if I went back, I'd be useless. And I still don't know my father's situation. James frowned. Still nothing? You didn't feel anything when I was fighting? Thor shook his head. I tried to summon Mjolnir. I wanted to. But there was no response. I guess I really did lose my worthiness. He looked genuinely dejected. And James could understand why. Thor might have been just another alien to him, but the guy still believed he was a god, and gods don't like feeling powerless. At that point, James knew he wasn't the one who could help. That was Jane's role now. Sometimes motivation needed a more emotional source. And Jane Foster seemed to be exactly that. With the fight over, the town was a smoking ruin. James turned to Phil. How long until backup arrives? They're on their way. You did good. At least now we know we're not totally helpless against these things, Coulson said, clearly impressed. We only got lucky it got a weakness. Do we have radiation scanners? Let's clear that first, then we can let the residents back in to start cleaning up. This place needs rebuilding. The government footing the bill? Definitely. We'll keep them quiet with a generous compensation package. They got no insurance out here, so we'll make sure it's enough. But first we'll comb the site for foreign fragments and tech. James nodded, but Cortana had already scanned the area. No radiation detected. The energy release was clean, pure energy, no contamination. James wasn't interested in picking through wreckage. Whatever was left of the destroyer probably wasn't useful in small fragments, nor does he have the tech to process the materials. Soon, S.H.I.E.L.D's recovery team arrived. They showed up in full protective gear, but quickly removed it once they confirmed it was safe. The cleanup began, searching for what little was left of the Asgardian weapon. James went to clean up himself. He was caked in dirt, soot, and debris. The explosion had buried him more than he would like. Meanwhile, Thor and his companions regrouped, quietly talking near the ruins. 3 days passed. Town residents were allowed back in. They'd been staying in tents nearby and were relieved when S.H.I.E.L.D. and the government guaranteed full rebuilding. It was a tiny town with just a few dozen families. Nothing complicated. With most homes made of wood, the cost wouldn't be outrageous. James made sure to remind Phil to do something extra for Jane, like a decent telescope, even a small one. Anything too large might end up more expensive than rebuilding the entire town. A few days later, Thor came to James wearing his armor, and with Mjolnir in hand. Plot armor did its work fixing itself for the future storyline, thought James. My friend, he said. We're leaving. Thank you for everything. James looked at the hammer. You finally picked it up? How? Thanks to Jane, Thor said with a sheepish grin. James smirked. Figures. Congrats. I hope it all works out when you get back. Thor turned serious. Can I ask you to look after them? Jane and the others? Of course. Don't worry about them. We've already got support lined up to rebuild their lab. And S.H.I.E.L.D's taking an interest in her theories now, especially the ones you helped her with. That's good. When I return, we'll share a drink. Oh, right. You don't drink. A shame you don't get to taste the drink of gods. Thor just smiled farewell and the group made their way just outside town. Thor called to Heimdall, and the rainbow bridge descended in a flash of multicolored light. Thor and his companions vanished. Not long after, Hawkeye arrived, rushing up with his team. Sir, the hammer took off. Shot out of the crater. It's headed this way. Phil waved him off. Relax. It's gone. James was right. That was Mjolnir. Some of the myths we have, they're based on these guys. Aliens? Gods? Same thing. So, mission's over? Yeah. For now. Clint glanced at James, expression unreadable, but not friendly. James felt it, but didn't know the reason. He didn't care either. There were more important things to worry about. Phil, James said, unless there's anything else, I'm heading out. No active missions, right? Not right now. What about your investigation? I'll speak when it matters. Right now they're too deep. I'll dig them out my way. Once I finish what I'm doing, I'll head to HQ. Stay in contact. We all want this done fast. If what you're saying about S.H.I.E.L.D. is true, the stakes are bigger than we thought. Don't worry, James said, already walking off. It's under control. He didn't take a S.H.I.E.L.D. plane. He booked a civilian ticket to California. The moment he landed, he called Stark. Tony? Where are you? New York. Stark Tower's almost online with the new energy system. Self-sustaining, at least in theory. Just the prototype right now, but promising. What's up? Chapter 71, Nocturne. In the basement lab of Tony Stark's California villa, Tony was inspecting James's armor design. You really came up with this yourself? He asked, raising an eyebrow. Yeah. What do you think? James said. Aren't you an accountant? I am, James shrugged, but accountants can know physics and systems engineering too. Tony tilted his head. Honestly, it's a solid design. Fits your combat style perfectly. But the weight distribution between these two weapons is going to be an issue. And that electromagnetic sniper rifle concept? It's clever, but how do you plan to handle the recoil? Your heart can only handle so much, and that kind of kick would break bones in a long fight. That's the problem. What would you suggest? Tony smirked. Simple. We build you your own Iron Man armor, redesigned from the ground up. Incorporate that left-arm energy weapon you want and a sniper rifle that mounts to the shoulder. We can set it up with 2 firing modes. Hell, we could even throw in missile support. You'd be a walking artillery unit. James raised an eyebrow. Why do you sound excited about that? When I charge into a fight, who better to have covering me than the most precise shooter I've ever seen? You don't miss. Not even JARVIS is that accurate. Well, that's one way to talk me into it, James said. But that would mean there's more than one Iron Man. Tony shook his head. Nah, I'll always be the one at the front. Flashy, bold, and headline-worthy. No one notices the guy sniping in the back. That's just support. Hero work is all about the spotlight. James chuckled. Fair. Not like people remember the guy kneeling with the rifle. Tony grinned. You need a hero name, though. Something cool. How about Shadowgun? James rolled his eyes. You want me to shoot you in the back? Okay, how about something you like? I was thinking. Nocturne. Just Nocturne. Matches the armor I named the Umbra Sentinel. Superheroes get code names, right? Tony nodded. That's actually not bad. Ominous brings fear in the dark. They got to work using the holographic table to render a prototype. How'd the original Umbra Sentinel armor work for you? Tony asked. Not bad. Still using it. I like the colors too. But I need your help with the roof rig. I'm telling you, getting in and out of that thing is a pain. Not like I will tell him I got a subspace storage that could equip and unequip the armor. Not even S.H.I.E.L.D. noticed me using it, just thinking it was in the car. I'll send someone to fix that. Meanwhile, JARVIS, pull up the Nexus prototype. The projection loaded up a modified Iron Man frame with heavier bracing. Needs enlarging, Tony said. Knees, feet, support structure for long-range fire. We'll need shock-absorbing knee braces, and we'll redesign the right shoulder to house that literal cannon. He scattered the virtual armor, reassembling components with tweaks. What do you think, red for the weapons section? James asked. Red? With black? You really like that color combo, huh? Tony gave him a look. What? Your suit's red and gold. That matches your ego. Mine's just style. Tony grinned. Exactly. It shines on stage. The simulation was updated. The new Nocturne armor appeared, matte black, with a bold red energy weapon on the left arm and a retractable sniper rifle over the right shoulder. Bit plain, James noted. Open up the sniper system. The barrel unfolded, two-layered construction. The inner core was an extendable metal barrel for energy rounds, and the outer shell can retract and form a split diamond-shaped casing that converted to an electromagnetic cannon that will propel the energy round stronger. Tony whistled. You might actually be flashier than me now. But I'm supposed to stay in the dark, remember? James said with a smirk. The suit could be upgraded later, modular style. Plenty of room for growth. Tony nodded. All right. You're officially Nocturne. Armor, Umbra Sentinel. Weapon system, Nexus. Elegant, right? You're worse than me, Tony muttered. So you admit your personality's trash? James grinned. Whatever. Now for shooting posture on one knee? Yup. Knee needs support, foot needs bracing. Right knee, left foot slightly offset. Symmetrical? Tony asked. Yeah, both weapons are independently powered. Helps with alternating fire. Did you notice the difference in energy output between the two? Of course. You'll need to charge the main rifle shot though. Takes time, but when it hits, that's a strategic class strike. The rifle's electromagnetic arc shot required charge time to fire. The left arm weapon split, one half for rapid-fire dread fire, the other for the high-powered dead zone. Exactly. I need a trump card. Big targets aren't going down easily. Also, the helmet should be retractable. I want the option to expose my head. Tony raised an eyebrow. Still trust yourself more than tech, huh? Didn't you say I shoot better than a computer? And technically, I am one, James said, nodding to Cortana. Fair enough. JARVIS, begin alloy orders. Start fabrication. Yes, sir. Estimated production time, 7 hours, 25 minutes. Tony turned to James. All right. Now let's talk about your apartment. Got a floor plan? Yeah. Top floor. 2 units. I bought them both. One's empty. I figured that's where we do the modifications. Perfect. Stark Industries engineers will handle it. We'll set up a robotic rig so you can suit up and disarm automatically. Your father can help too. Appreciate it. I'll need ammo manufacturing too, energy cores and modular gear. You know, I'm tempted to build a production line. With how much juice you're going to burn, it might be worth it. Not yet, James said. Earth's not ready for high-grade tech production. We're keeping this under the radar. Chapter 72, Stark's Way of Doing Things. The new version of Umbra Sentinel was complete, twice the size of the original. The Nexus arm system was functional, though only one set had been produced so far. James needed to get familiar with the equipment, work through any issues, and see if the system was ready for limited production. Tony Stark's cliffside villa was isolated, with the ocean sprawling below. It was perfect for live-fire tests. James could launch rounds into the sea without worrying about collateral damage. But something still bugged him. The energy weapon in my left arm can't use the slingshot gun trick, he muttered, a little frustrated. Cortana, we designed the weapon around stable energy pulses, not ballistic simulation. Sling fire arcs require projectile mass and shape, typically sharp or round. Energy doesn't behave like that. So we'd need a whole new energy model based on pistol physics? Correct. Not impossible, but not practical without a breakthrough in energy field shaping. Guess I'll keep thinking about it. I don't want to rely on one system. If I can't trust my weapon to land a hit every time, I'm at a disadvantage. Your focus should shift to close combat options. You can't shoot your way out of every situation. Think ahead, New York is going to be chaos. Yeah. So what matches my style for close quarters? Consider the glorious executioner's gear. Spinning axes. James raised an eyebrow. That's actually kind of cool. You already know knife combat, which could be incorporated with the spinning axes, as well as the accuracy and dexterity to throw and catch the axes. Before he could follow that thought further, Tony's voice crackled through the comms. James, come inside for a sec. Don't start practice yet. Phil Coulson called. Something big seems to be going down. James walked back toward the villa, armor compacted and stored within his internal space. He couldn't match Stark's wealth, but his gear was efficient. All his capital was tied up in league games, zero liquidity, which meant no personal support crew. What's going on? Watch this. Tony queued up a video feed. JARVIS played it on a nearby display. The footage was chaotic and shaky, definitely not professional. People screamed in the background. A massive figure rampaged through the street, cars flying, buildings crumbling. James recognized it instantly. Abomination. Then came the counter. A familiar green figure charged in, Hulk. The two giants collided, throwing each other through concrete and metal. When was this? And why didn't we hear about it? A few days ago, Tony replied. We've been deep in your armor project, and I'm guessing this was media suppressed. JARVIS didn't catch much, which is unusual. I'd heard rumors about the green guy before, but he disappeared for a while. James crossed his arms. Probably the US military poking around again. When in doubt, they always mess with their own country. Tony snorted. Paranoid generals and narcissistic politicians, what else is new? James nodded. Exactly. So what does Coulson want with you? They're not planning to recruit you, are they? Not this time. Someone wants to add Abomination to the Avengers initiative. Fury's not on board, obviously, guy's unstable. But the pressure's building. Phil wants me to visit General Ross, get him to lock the brute down permanently. James smirked. Classic tie-in. I remember this, used to be a Marvel short. Now it's real. They suited up in sleek business attire and boarded Tony's private jet. James didn't envy the luxury plane. What he really wanted was Phil Coulson's old ride, the retro hovercar S.H.I.E.L.D. compensated him with. Too bad he'd probably have to die to get it. The jet touched down in New York. Ross was holed up in a small bar, drunk out of his mind. He'd been burned. His reputation, his projects, his funding, all gone. Guy deserves it, James muttered, flipping through Phil's briefing. Why's he still even a general? Not our call, Tony said. Our job is to make sure he doesn't hand over Abomination. S.H.I.E.L.D's officially calling me in. Tony seemed a little too excited. They pulled up to the bar, stepped inside, and spotted Ross immediately, military fatigues, slouched at the counter, whiskey in hand. Tony whispered, "Time to rattle the cage." They walked over. "I smell steel, booze, and failure," Tony said casually. "General, I hate to say I told you so, but your super soldier program? It was doomed from day one. Ross looked up, bleary-eyed. Stark. Always dressed like you're going to a photo shoot. Tony smirked. Exactly. Presentation matters. That's why I succeed and you don't. Ross's eyes narrowed. Watch it. I say this to presidents too, don't feel special. I'm here on behalf of S.H.I.E.L.D. Someone upstairs thinks your mutant science experiment could be an asset. Personally, I think it's trash. But whatever, World Security Council wants it. Tony leaned in. Hand him over. We'll take responsibility. Better with us than wasting oxygen in your cage. Ross slammed his glass down. Not happening. That thing's staying buried. Forever. Really? Even after I bought this bar? Tony pulled out a check and waved it around. Yeah. This place? Mine now. Thursday I'm blowing it up. It's ugly anyway. James leaned back, arms crossed, grinning from the antics. Typical Stark. Chapter 73, Company Update. Tony Stark eventually got kicked out of the bar. General Ross had drawn his gun, and that pretty much confirmed Abomination wasn't going anywhere. James didn't need to say a word. The mission was an easy success. Phil Coulson called the next day, sounding pleased. Ross had refused to release Abomination, and, better yet, didn't try to blame Hulk for the Harlem incident. James, you think that big green guy's a superhero material? Tony asked on the flight back to California. Not yet, James replied. Banner's a good guy, but he can't control the Hulk. That thing doesn't follow commands, it acts on instinct. That kind of randomness doesn't qualify as a superhero. Fair point. Then I'm the only superhero in the country, right? Unless you decide to go public. I'm not interested. You do the whole public idol thing. Captain America's still in cryo recovery, but once he's back you won't be so lonely. You mean the guy in tights from the museum archives? I read the S.H.I.E.L.D. file. The first official superhero, huh? But let's be honest, he's a relic. Probably won't be able to keep up with modern tech. Anyway, you going back to test your armor? Nah, I need to check on the company, James said. If the capital chain is stable, we won't need to take loans for the HQ build. Plus, the first League of Legends tournament is starting soon. Just the North American division for now. A bunch of companies from around the world are also lining up to talk about agency rights for League and Samira. Huge opportunities for global expansion. Really? I'm coming with then. Iron Man mains only, Tony said with a grin. James smirked. He based the in-game Iron Man off the Quinn archetype with a flight-based Ultimate and Victor-type Hex tech style. Tony never touched any other champions. Typical narcissist. James had plans to evolve the build, top, mid, and ADC. He was going to make Iron Man viable in every lane. After they returned to California, they took a day to rest before flying out to Silicon Valley. The headquarters foundation was finished, and construction was moving floor by floor. 3 years to completion minimum. Still, software and game development were ahead of schedule. CEO Kyle Robert greeted them. We've hit 35 million users. With momentum like this, it's just a matter of time before we dominate the US market. The budget membership model is working. Samira is flying, and our media player and video platform are gaining ground. We project 60 million users by year's end. Large-scale promotion is already in motion. Good. What about cash flow? James asked. Can we cover HQ construction without debt? League Games had secured $1.3 billion in capital. On top of that, the $300 million esports museum and the $2.5 billion HQ build had already been greenlit. James wasn't worried about the money. He just didn't want to split the pie with investors. Nouveau riche instincts. We should bring in investors, Kyle offered. I was surprised you've kept out all the venture capitals. If we lock up the US market, we're pushing close to antitrust territory. Not the time yet. What about the companies asking for regional agency rights? All of them want exclusive deals. Are you planning to speak with them directly? No. You're the CEO. It's your show. But here's the guideline, we don't sell rights separately. Any regional proxy has to give us 30% equity. No licensing fees, just shares. Kyle hesitated. That'll be a hard sell. Then we move to the next tier. Our tech and games are strong enough to turn any mid-tier firm into a market leader. But remember, 30% equity. No more. No less. They don't want it? They can leave. Kyle nodded slowly. Understood. He left the office and Tony leaned over. You're starting to go global. Why not start your own satellite companies in each region? If you need capital, I can float you zero interest. James shook his head. He knew Tony meant it, but that wasn't the strategy. It's better to partner locally. If we try to control everything ourselves, governments and competitors will block us. But with regional partners holding stakes, they'll protect our interests. And if someone tries to clone our model, we let our partners handle the legal side. If we go solo everywhere, we'll be strangled by red tape. Then why not open it up in the US now? I kept 20% of the shares untouched. That's the slice for American VCs eventually. The pie's not big enough yet. But give it a year. When our valuation hits a certain point, that 20% will be enough to list and feed every venture capitalist on the East Coast. And I'll have plenty of cash when it's over. Tony nodded. Makes sense. With 20% going to VCs, your personal shares won't hit 51%. But with me and your dad, we will still control the company. Exactly. You keep your shares. Once the HQ's built, you'll be sitting on even more wealth. The first annual League of Legends tournament was just around the corner. $5 million in prize money. Teams were forming across North America, and James had already ordered Kyle to launch the North American division immediately. It would be the only active region this year, but next year they'd start adding more. For a global esports franchise, the organizer needed weight. James used his patents and game IP to empower allies. The vision was already working, and when they added superhero characters like Hex-Tech-powered Iron Man, it became unstoppable. Soon he'd bring in versions of Captain America, Thor, maybe even Hulk. The licensing was free. None of the heroes cared about royalties. Superheroes were globally beloved. Adding them would supercharge the League's popularity. Compared to the universe James came from, this one had better tools, better allies, and way more potential. He was building something bigger. And it was only just beginning. Chapter 74, Kick-Ass? Kyle Robert began negotiating with representatives from various global regions. It was a back and forth for terms, but a few forward-thinking companies immediately accepted League Games' offer, exclusive regional agency rights in exchange for 30% equity. No fees and no upfront charges. Once those deals were on the table, the remaining companies backed off. If they couldn't win the exclusive rights, they weren't interested in secondary scraps. And honestly, 30% equity didn't seem like much when the upside was obvious. After the contracts were finalized, James hosted a signing cocktail party. The next day, headlines exploded across the media. Daily News: James Gibson launches global campaign. Samira and League of Legends go worldwide, faster than any tech brand in recent memory. The New York Times: League Games distributes global agency rights with zero financial exchange, only equity. Overnight, the company positions itself as an international powerhouse. Tony Stark calls co-founder James Gibson a genius. Global Daily: valuation skyrocketing. League Games, founded less than a year ago, approaches the $100 billion mark. Is this the next digital bubble, or the new gold standard? James hadn't expected that much press coverage from one cocktail event, but it saved millions in ad spend. It wasn't just about profit. This was about influence. Hydra had been manipulating Earth's infrastructure for generations. If James was going to root them out, he needed reach. Global reach. Trusted partners in every region. If S.H.I.E.L.D. ever collapsed, or if James had to disappear underground, this would be his fallback. A private network strong enough to stand beside S.H.I.E.L.D., or go toe-to-toe with Hydra. With California squared away, James returned home to New York. The moment he stepped into the penthouse, he froze. There was a girl in the living room. Young, blonde, and seemingly familiar. Carlos and Hannah were sitting with her, chatting like it was normal. "James, you're back," Carlos said, standing to greet him. "Yeah. I'll be around for a bit. Tony's team is coming to renovate the unit next door." "Who's the kid?" James asked, nodding toward the girl. "Cortana, facial match found. Chloe Grace Moretz, age 13, kick-ass film reference. Role, hit girl." James blinked. "Wait, seriously?" Carlos nodded. "This is Mindy McGrady. She's 11. Her father was a police officer, killed in the line of duty during the Harlem incident. A cop wanted to adopt her, but he died too. Oh, but why is she in our house? Did you adopt her? James asked, still processing it. Carlos answered casually, yep. What do you think? James rolled his eyes. You brought her home and now you ask me? Not that I mind. Carlos didn't comment, and James shook his head. Fine by me. I'll move next door once it's renovated. We'll shift the armory over. This place isn't suited for kids. Actually, Carlos said, I was thinking of just converting the study. She can stay with Hannah until it's done. James nodded. That's fine, we don't really use it anyway. How'd this even happen, though? Carlos leaned back. Hannah and I were doing some volunteer work after the Harlem incident. We saw a girl crying in the arms of a cop. Turned out it was Mindy. After hearing about what happened and I guess knowing that Hannah and I might not be having kids, suggested we take her in. Her rental's small, so I said, why not just stay with us? You've got a good sister now. James sighed. He was in his mid-20s and suddenly had an 11-year-old sibling. Guess I better get used to helping with homework. Carlos smiled and led him over. Mindy, this is your brother James. I told you about him. Hello, James, Mindy said. She wasn't shy at all, confident, clear-eyed. James wasn't sure if she was really hit girl. If she was, she'd need discipline. If not, better training. Hey, Mindy. Welcome to the team. You can come to me for anything, all right? Thanks, she said with a grin. Hannah joined them, beaming. So Mindy's staying with me until her room is done. Carlos and I are going to make it work. James could see it. Hannah didn't just like the girl. She was slipping into the role of a mom. And considering how well she and Carlos were doing, it made sense. James didn't object. He'd be out on missions most of the time anyway. It wasn't really a bad thing, having a family under one roof. That night, James offered to take everyone out for dinner. It was their first outing as a makeshift family. He drove the Chevy to a nearby fine dining spot. After dropping off Hannah and Mindy afterwards, James drove back home with Carlos. James, sorry I didn't run this with you, Carlos said, watching the city roll past. You don't have to. It's good having a sister at home with you. She's better off with us than bouncing around the system. Besides, you and Hannah seem to be doing pretty well. Carlos gave a rare smile. Yeah, I think we are. Chapter 75, School Enrollment. James had a sister now, a sister he barely knew. Thanks to S.H.I.E.L.D's intelligence network, he had access to everything they'd managed to gather on Mindy McCready. Her father, once a decorated officer, had been framed for drug possession and spent 5 years in prison. After his release, he raised Mindy alone. So far, it tracked with what James remembered from the kick-ass films back in his original universe. But there were gaps. What the two of them did behind closed doors, the private training, the combat, none of that made it into the official records. Her father's death had been broadcast online, but the footage had since vanished. Scrubbed clean. Even S.H.I.E.L.D. didn't have it archived, probably because it wasn't considered valuable enough. Was Mindy really hit girl? Maybe or maybe not. It didn't matter. If she was, she had Carlos and James now. She could grow up like a normal kid. But if she still had the edge, well, a girl with some bite wasn't a bad thing. The next morning, James had paperwork to handle, school enrollment. Technically, education was compulsory in the U.S., but the specifics varied state to state. He didn't care about the legal minimums. Instead, he found a private school nearby, grades 6 through 12. It was well-funded, low-profile, and quiet. He swung by the flower shop in his sports car, picked up Mindy, and headed straight to campus. You nervous about school? He asked, glancing at her as they drove. A little, never really went to one, Mindy replied. Big Daddy taught me most things already. I was enrolled just to see what it's like. James flinched at the phrase Big Daddy. Right. Well, new life, new start. People adapt. Speaking of which, anything left at your old place? I can send someone to grab it. No. We didn't have much. None are worth taking back, she said quickly. Definitely hit girl, James thought. That kind of detachment? Not typical for an 11-year-old. Okay. Then I'll let Hannah go wild on your room. Pretty sure she's making it full princess. Mindy blinked. What's that supposed to mean? You'll see. They pulled into the school lot. It was exactly what you'd expect from a high-end private academy, quiet, spotless, and hella expensive. There wasn't even a school bus in sight. Most of the kids drove themselves or had private drivers. You like it? James asked, climbing out. Once you're older, you can get your own car. Can I get a motorcycle? She asked. James smirked. Not a fan of four wheels? Mindy just stared at him. James remembered Hit Girl asking for a butterfly knife in the film. Maybe it was more accurate than he thought. You've got time to think about it. Let's meet your principal first. She didn't object when he took her hand, but she clearly wasn't used to the gesture. Strong girl. Didn't mean she didn't need someone in her life. The principal was waiting, round-faced, polite, and businesslike. Mr. James Gibson, he greeted. And this is Mindy McCready? That's right. She's my new sister, adopted by my father, but she lives with me. Any issues with her enrolling? Not at all, the principal said. Though I see she's never attended formal primary school? She was mostly homeschooled by her father. She'll need to catch up, but she's sharp. If she needs support, I'll arrange tutoring. Very well. We'll place her in grade 12. She's missed half the year, but I believe she can close the gap. James nodded. Tuition wasn't a problem, even if his cash was mostly tied up in league games. He still had his S.H.I.E.L.D. salary and some private reserves. Once enrollment was complete, they left campus. Let's get supplies, James said. See what you like. At the store, Mindy went for purple everything, a school bag, pencil case, wallet. James didn't shop for clothes. That was Hannah's domain. No way he'd ruin her fun. That night, James decided the four of them would go out to sea. Family cookout on the yacht. He called Carlos. Let's have a barbecue tonight. I'll take Mindy to grab ingredients. Good call. Meet you at home. They hit the supermarket. James let Mindy handle the cart. What do you like? She tilted her head. Seafood okay? Seafood's perfect. Grab whatever you want. She moved with confidence, quick choices with no hesitation. Even with pushing the cart, she was fluid and efficient. James noticed the faint calluses on her hand when they touched, firearm calluses. She still believed Carlos was a florist and thought James was just a businessman. Probably for the best. Back home, they loaded everything into the fridge. James cooked a simple lunch, nothing fancy. They saved their appetite for dinner. Carlos and Hannah came back early, excited. They closed the shop that afternoon and packed up. Their yacht rarely got used, but James figured that was about to change. Family, food, and ocean breeze. Sometimes even spies and soldiers needed a break.